Wilson takes off. And the freshman gets the corner. It's a foot race. Knocked out at the one. Now you see the talents.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Feely in motion. Got a man down the sidelines. It's him, Toafili, and he is off. One man to beat, cuts it back, and brought down to the 20-yard line by Sheridan Jones. They're going to say touchdown. He landed on somebody. Toafili with a magic act, and they're calling it a touchdown.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Here's Edwards with a lay. Donovan Edwards down the sideline. Gets past Ransom. Donovan Edwards. Touchdown, Michigan, the Don.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Looking for an option to the end zone. He goes. Touchdown, Canes. Jacoby George.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
This time in the shotgun. Play fake. Aller to the end zone. Touchdown. Penn State. Khalil Dinkins.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
They're going to go Wildcat and snap it directly to Maffa. He tries the right-hand side. He finds Painter. That's a Clemson touchdown.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
Good afternoon. It's 365 Sports, and I'm David Smoke. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoke on the set. This is 365 Sports. Garrett Ross runs the mothership. I know Emery and Levi are not here. They sent me a picture. They were playing golf earlier today. I did too, but I'm working now. They were at Cottonwood Creek. I was at Bear Ridge, but they're out having fun, I guess, today playing a little golf.
So that was earlier. Emery now has to go. His mother's going on vacation, and he is holding down the fort at her store for the next couple of days.
Oh, okay.
And it's look, I'll give them a free plug because she gave us Emery. She should at least get. I mean, Emery was voted class favorite last week. I mean,
he was
unanimously.
Craig was gone though; he didn't get a vote.
Yeah, Emery's your favorite, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, unanimous. But it's the paper crown here on Franklin and 6 for all your scrapbooking and paper needs, gifts and whatnot.
Remember scrapbooks? Does the internet kill scrapbooks?
No, it's still a pretty big hobby.
No, I think it's still. Yeah, I think.
Well, there's a store for it apparently.
No,
so,
no, I was just saying because a lot of things now are online. That's good, and scrapbooks I always thought were pretty cool. Could be a football season, could be a high school career. It could be family. It could be anything. All right.
So go on in and see Emery today, tomorrow.
Today, by the way, is August the 15th, and I don't know if anyone remembers what needed to happen by August the 15th, at least from what has been reported, that Clemson and Florida State needed to decide or tell the ACC that they would be looking elsewhere or leaving the conference. Not for this year, but in the future. No one expected them to tell the ACC by today that they would be leaving the ACC, but I just wanted to throw that out there because there was so much rehash of this throughout the last several months.
Yeah, it's official. They will not be in there next year as far as there as in the SEC or the Big Ten or whatever move. If they were going to do that, the deadline was today. And I know there was reports a couple of weeks ago that this was probably not going to happen, and it didn't today. And I do think there is some revisionist history going on, as often happens with realignment stuff of, well, that was never going to be a big deal anyway. It's like, wait a second, that was pointed to quite a bit as far as a date to watch. But, yeah, I don't know how close it ever even got. It doesn't appear like close at all. But that was a carrot that was dangled for months and months and months as far as like a be on the lookout. And mind you, that was after the lookout for what was supposed to happen in July. And then that wasn't important, so then it was the August 15th. The August 15th, though, a valid date because of the deadline itself. So
yeah, that's a legal deadline.
Yeah, worth mentioning that. Yeah, that's just making it official that those two aren't going to be in another league next year. It doesn't calm the waters entirely, obviously, but I think as far as we've gone with our approach, it's like when there's some meat on the bone, we'll discuss it. But I think all signs, for the most part, outside of just noise you hear on social media, which some of that's valid, some of it is. There's also a lot of it that's not even in terms of just on any topic, right? So it's like consume whatever you want to, but from what I've consumed, I haven't felt like there is anything like on the horizon and happening right this moment. And I think as we get closer to the season, the odds of, something colossal happening and a date like today passing by just reinforces that. So, yeah, it's not like the end of the story, anywhere close to the end of the story, but it does put a ribbon on what was already pretty much tied up, which was that they weren't going to be moving by next year.
By 25-26.
Yeah.
Paul, what happened to mediation?
Well, mediation hasn't even really started yet.
There you go.
Remember,
that was another thing.
Yeah,
mediation is Thursday.
Yeah, it's coming up. And so, that still has to happen. So it was never going to happen this year. I know that you didn't watch it. Craig, I'm not sure if you were a Parks and Rec guy.
No, but Paul, doesn't today mean it can't happen 25 and 26
Yeah,
too?
exactly.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
Again.
Next year.
Yeah,
No,
they wouldn't have done it.
About this year. Okay.
Yeah, they wouldn't have done it this year anyway if they had to go to,
What I thought you said was this year. Well, no that's why I clarified 25 and 26.
They can't move this year. The season starts in 2 weeks.
No.
Yeah, but no, they can't announce this year anyway because they still have to. They don't even know what they'd be announcing, right? So that's not even happening in the mediation yet. That's a week from now. So the minute you found out that they were going to mediation, unless all of a sudden the ACC was like, "Look, we've got a headache. Let's just do this before then." That was never going to happen, which the ACC is not motivated to do. But there was an episode of Parks and Rec. Garrett, I know you know this.
The filibuster?
No, not the filibuster. There was somebody every year had to go out and sit in the park with this group of people called the Reasonableists, and they believed that the world was ending every year on this one night. And of course it never did. And then they came after the episode was at the end of the episode, the guy comes back in and goes, the world is ending next year on June 4th. And they're like, booked. And he's like, June 9th? And they're like, okay, we got it. Like, that's exactly what's going on.
That is a lot of what it feels like.
Realignment. It's like, it's going to happen on August 15th. Booked.
January 7th.
Yeah.
And so, I think now, and I haven't looked at all today, but I would imagine it's like now we're looking at the end of the year because football season's coming up, and something could always happen during the course of football season. But I think like it was evident last year, it's like everything happened, and then it happened in a flurry, and then football season started. And then we revisited it after football season. I don't know if that'll be the case this year or not. Like I said, the FSU Clemson story is not going anywhere, but I do think that there's been an awful lot of like some of those examples that you just gave of like, watch this, and then it comes and goes, that wasn't ever important anyways, guys. It was all about October 2nd. And it's like October 2nd goes by. It's like, fellas, it was all about the January 7th, like that kind of thing. And so, just that was a date today that was kind of one of those that was thrown out there. FSU circles, I know a lot of FSU fans were pumped up about August 15th. I'm sure Paul saw that, that bought into the idea that could be the big succession date. And so for those fans that got their hopes up for whatever, corner of this story they were rooting for, today is not the day, unfortunately. But there will be another day, as we're talking about, and there will be days that do matter and that there are big decisions made. It's just not going to be August the 15th like some people were hoping for.
Well, I was going to bring it up proactively. I didn't see anyone say anything about that today, but I had put that in my calendar. And so today is on its way out, and nothing's going to happen for at least the next couple of seasons.
I've seen a lot of, most of the stuff that I see is, ACC fans fighting back. I don't know how often you guys see that. A lot of, not FSU fans, but, Pitt fans and SMU fans and those fans where I've seen like the back talk with the Big 12 fans who are all like, hey, we're going to go kill you guys here soon. And so that's mostly what I've seen. So I saw that August 15th getting brought up quite a bit with the back and forth between the pro ACC crowd and the pro Big 12, we're going to take your team's crowd. And so I don't know what that conversation's like between the two, or if that fizzled out in the last couple of days when it became apparent that nothing was probably going to happen. But, yeah, I'm sure somebody in, like, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is, like, taking a victory lap on Twitter or something like that today. So good for them.
We started to get some tagged by a guy that covers, or not covers. He likes the ACC, and kind of wanted to put the onus on the fact that we were the ones trying to blow up the ACC, which by no means did we ever say that. But that's fine.
Speak for yourself.
Yes.
I have loyalties.
Yes.
No.
So I went back and forth with him in a very positive way. And one day he tagged us on a story. We had talked about it. We had discussed it. We had a guest on about it. Mm-hmm. He was just kind of like throwing it out there because of a lot of the coverage we give the Big 12.
Garrett, give me a thumbs up.
Okay, let me get it real quick.
When you get this, to follow it on how, I'll just say the word douchey, that a big portion of the FSU fans have been about it and how much it's helped. This is from a group that I love, the Battle's End. This is the FSU NIL thing, but Garrett's going to have a picture on the screen of a shirt that you can buy on the site right now.
ACCC. Yep.
So,
yeah, those are definitely some of the fans I've come across.
Yeah, I mean, look, and I don't blame the Battle's End for capitalizing on this energy.
No.
Like, that's how you raise money for your NIL.
It's a little premature.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly.
I like
it's one of those things like, it's another one of those like, well, eventually it'll be right. You know, you're selling it maybe a year early or maybe 9 years
4
early.
Years
yeah,
early.
you might be
years,
selling it like people who are in high school are going to be graduating college by the time that actually becomes a relevant shirt. But yeah, that's fun. Make a buck off of a very hot topic. And Florida State fans are a lot of the crowd that I've seen, you know, not just August, but just specific dates in general. And there's like some Pitt people and some NC State people. I mean, just name it. Everybody's got their team. And so there's like all these like contingents now that fight over, you know, when this is all going to fall apart. Mm-hmm. And today's just not the day. That's the point. Today's not going to be that day.
Today won't be the day for the next 2 years, basically, but you never know how things can change. Last night, Joseph Duarte, this is not a tweet or anything, but I noticed this note. Houston had a big celebration of Fan Fest. They have a shirt called Greater Than 12. That's what the shirt was. And it has all the various teams' mascots or whatever, but Greater Than 12 was on the front of the shirt as they were celebrating the start of the football season with one of those Meet the Football Team. And a lot of people say, hey, can I get a copy of that? I couldn't find the link to it, but it has all the mascots. Greater Than 12 was the T-shirt last night at a Houston Fan Fest.
Yeah, that's a tag I feel like, I don't know if the Big 12's officially adopted that, but I do feel like I've heard that, and I heard that at Media Days quite a bit. I feel like that was in the commercials. Like, that's the part of the tagline, I feel like, of the Big 12 at this point. And maybe I'm just misremembering. Maybe that's something else I read on Twitter and I'm attributing it to the wrong place. But I feel like that's kind of the motto now of the league, if not in that commercial as the motto that Brett Yormark played. And if it's not, and if I'm thinking of something else, I mean, that sums up kind of the feeling. And so I can see where some people, if you're a Big 12 supporter, would want to go chip in, especially if it's a cool shirt. And I think one of the things that's been kind of cool from Big 12 fans is, I don't want to see it get like the SEC where everybody's cheering, others' championships and whatnot. I do think there is room to be a collective support system for your fellow schools, not like over the top, the way it can get. But certainly I have loved seeing how various fan bases that normally would have nothing to do with each other have rallied together and have made the Big 12, I think, a stronger group of fan bases than it probably has been in a very long time, because they're all in it together, knowing they've all got to paddle it and row together to keep this thing afloat as best they can, right? And that it's not
the evil
one's greater than other.
Yeah.
Right. So like everybody's on even footing and seeing eye to eye and understanding the situation, and also understanding that everybody's got to keep a side out for their own best interest, but it has led to more of a group harmony type of a thing. Now when the ball hits the field here in a few weeks, that'll all change, but I think as far as just rooting for the collective best and rooting for a bright future, it's as intact as it's ever been in this conference.
I agree. Yeah. Will Howard has been named the starting quarterback. No surprise, but that now is official as the starting quarterback, QB1 for Ohio State for their opening game coming up in 3 weeks. And that's not a surprise. The surprise would have been had he not been named the starting quarterback.
Yeah, no, that would have been a really – I mean, it would have been great news for someone like Aaron Nolan or Julian Sayin or Devin Brown, winning that job. But Will Howard, they didn't go get Will Howard and pay him what I'm sure was a pretty sturdy NIL deal for him to come there and be the backup. So, I mean, I guess it could have been a good problem if one of those guys all of a sudden just exploded into a star. But, yeah, not a surprise at all. And I'm curious to see what happens quarterback-wise on that roster after next spring, because Will Howard will be done. It'll be Aaron Nolan, Julian Sayin, both true freshmen this year, and then Devin Brown, a veteran, and at least one of those guys is going to leave.
Yeah, I mean, at least one of them will certainly leave, and I mean, who knows what's Ryan Day doing at the end of the year? Like, did they go and make the playoff and win the national title or play for it? Like the big expectations are indicating they should do. There's pressure there. You just never know. Like we get thrown curveballs sometimes, but yeah, I mean, just in general, if things stay intact, and there's not like a coaching change that leads to an exodus of those recruits, yeah, something's going to have to give in that room. But I'm excited to see like Julian Sayin when the time comes, and I think Will Howard was the obvious choice, and that would have been, like you said, a much bigger story if he wasn't named the guy. But Sayin, Nolan, like those are young talents that I'm excited to see at some point. But, yeah, this was always going to be Will Howard's job, and if it wasn't, that was going to be the bigger story.
No question, but what a quarterback room that they have. Unbelievable.
Well, Ryan Day, man, it's like Lincoln Riley. Same kind of concept of puts dudes in the pros at the quarterback position and is really good at what he does. So, yeah, if I was a quarterback, those two would be near the top of the list of guys I'd want to go play for.
I'll come back to the Neil Brown, West Virginia comment or two. We'll get that in a minute.
I do want to follow that up. Ryan Day would be unemployed for 7 seconds, and maybe he just doesn't need to be at Ohio State. But
I was thinking more of like you never know if like some guy just suddenly wants to go to the NFL, or there's a scandal coming that we don't know, and like you get on the way out of town, or if Ohio State's like you lost to Michigan again, and you had the greatest team assembled in the country, and you lost like 3 games somehow, and you washed out in the second round of the playoffs. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's just some unforeseen thing where things change. But, yeah, outside of that, Ryan Day's got a hell of a quarterback room.
I'll just tell you this. Of teams that I think will be open in the Big Two next year, if that happens and, like, Ohio State makes what I would think would be the mistake of letting Ryan Day go before Dabo Swinney could have done the same thing with him his first few years at Clemson. Before letting him work through it and finding it, if I'm Arkansas, I'd be like, Sam, get out of here as fast as you can. I don't need your crap in the office. Thanks for all your help.
There might be 20 to 25 programs. There would be more than just 5 or 10, but there would be 15 or 20 programs outside of that Ryan Day would be hired, and about half of the ones I mentioned would damn sure look at whether or not they could upgrade by bringing him in if he's available.
Yeah, absolutely.
Houston and their AD search is apparently they've targeted Tennessee's one of the Tennessee administrators, Ryan Alpert. Remember, we had Joseph Duarte on this week, and he was saying it's the slow moving, like molasses, but it looks like that they are targeting and getting close to now having someone to be able to replace Chris Pesman. Ryan Alpert among the finalists, deputy athletic director. Here's an interesting note. David Fletcher, the general manager of Lone Star Sports Entertainment, he brought him up. He's also interviewed for the job. There's also somebody that is now a part of Houston's ticket sales department who once was at Tennessee. So you might just be seeing a common denominator there, but they're still working, and they have not yet found anybody, but they're closing in and now doing the interview process where Houston's director of athletics. Colorado has hired a defensive, I guess you could say it's not even an analyst, just a defensive assistant, senior defensive assistant, George Hilo. He had worked under Nick Saban at Alabama as an analyst. He's also been at Michigan, a linebackers coach. Bruce Feldman saying he's worked at many schools in the Big Ten and the SEC. As Dion in Colorado bring in a defensive assistant, more of a senior defensive analyst for them. That's kind of late in the game. At least Gary Patterson was here, then he left and came back this week for a day. But there we are with Colorado as they try to continue to work on the defense that, of course, struggled quite a bit last year.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't have a deep dive on this, but I think the whole Alabama connection, I know he's been around the block in Tuscaloosa a couple of times, but like the most recent of like, he just came over from Alabama. Like he was hired at the very end of last year to basically give them Michigan info.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's he was like the co-DC and he's making this like massive move. It's more like, yeah, this is a guy with experience that can help out, and so it seems like a productive hire for Colorado. But I think the Alabama connections, like when you read that in the headline, I think it's not quite maybe what it appears. But a guy, yeah, obviously that can come in and hopefully help you improve that defense that I know they have high hopes for after last year. And in particular, I've seen a lot of talk about their D-line with all the transfers and how good they think that group can be. So if he can help Dion and them win a couple more games and get into a bowl, then it's a great hire. So we'll see how that works. But, yeah, it's a bit late in the game to see coaching hires happening, so that's interesting.
Yeah, and look, if Dion, and he probably knows that just hiring a guy because he was just at Alabama is not a cure-all. Charles Kelly was the defensive coordinator last year and came from Alabama, and he didn't just come with like a bottle of Tide dust and sprinkle it on those guys. I mean, it's
fairy dust.
Yeah,
I saw an article. Speaking of Colorado, and it was a positive article about Darian Hagan, who's now at San Diego State. Who's the coordinator that was there? Lewis, who's at San Diego State.
Yeah.
And Hagan in the article said that when they asked him about last year, that he goes, Dion and I were in the same building, but it wasn't like we ever really shared much together. It was kind of like, hey, how you doing? How you doing? And he said it was so hard. He had been there helping, as an alum, as a former star, a great quarterback that helped win a national title. But it was interesting because he's a legend at Colorado, but left with Sean Lewis to go to San Diego State. But it was almost as if he never said he didn't feel welcome. I'm not trying to bring that up because of Dion, but it was interesting the way he kind of discussed that relationship. They're in the same building. That's about it.
Yeah, I think I saw the same thing, and granted, there's a lot of, Dion sycophants and things, but I saw a lot of Colorado people who were like, his role wasn't even that big, and it's being blown out of proportion. So, it's hard to even understand, if there's not, a cold, hard, I know that guy was the DC for 9 years, I get confused as to who really contributed what, because so many people just talk out of the other side, you know what I mean? So, the way it was portrayed, because he's talking about Dion, it gets amplified as though
absolutely
it's a much bigger deal. And then you see the actual Colorado reaction to it, and they're basically saying why is this dude talking about Colorado? And and so I guess just take it how you want to take it. But yeah, I saw some of that as well.
I didn't see the article in any way as anything negative other than Darian Hagan.
But
was
people just read a headline
and
they see the recap and they automatically think that this dude's talking trash. And so that was probably some of the reaction was just to the headline that I saw.
Yeah.
But
they're a little bit sensitive on things that are being reported.
There is a little bit of sensitivity.
And in some cases, maybe they have a right to do that.
Sure.
Now, Oklahoma State, first time ever. Now, it's not the first time ever, but it is the first time ever. And I'll tell Brett McMurphy with this note. They have sold every ticket, 52,305 capacity at T. Boone Pickens Stadium, for the entire season, even before the opening game. A year ago, they did the same thing, but not before the season opener. They opened against the number one ranked team in the country in the FCS in South Dakota State. More on them in just a second. We had their coach, Jimmy Rogers, last Friday. They have sold out the entire complement of tickets for every game and home game at Boone Pickens Stadium this year in Stillwater. That's impressive. That's impressive.
Mm-hmm. Also, it's impressive. I just wish it was more commonplace. Yeah,
exactly.
You don't even need to. I mean, yeah, you're going to mention it no matter, even if you're Ohio State or I know Nebraska still is clinging. Are they still talking about the 200,000 games in a row where they've sold out? So that's a big deal whenever you sell out. But yeah, I would think that was kind of commonplace given the fan base in Stillwater. But the fact that it at least wasn't last year and now it is, I think just speaks to the excitement level of Oklahoma State fans with all that's returning and the feelings that in a conference that's, I think the tagline for the Big 12 is wide open. They're certainly one of those teams that's got a bit better odds with all that's coming back. And so, yeah, I can see where there's definitely an excitement level of maybe this is the year that Oklahoma State wins that Big 12 title that's been so elusive. And you know what? they're in the running, no doubt about it. So, yeah, I can see where fans are pumped up.
Well, they should be. It's Stillwater and Lubbock in the atmospheres. They remind me of the same place.
They're similar, yeah.
Yeah, and passionate fans, hell of a home field advantage.
You talk about a game for, like, if you want to feel the desperation, and I don't mean that in a negative way, to win a Big 12 title, a Texas Tech, Oklahoma State Big 12 championship game. I bet you could just feel the anxiety for both sides to win that game. That would be, I think it would be incredible to see, because you know how much it would mean to either side to do so. So yeah, that would be a hell of a game. But yeah, they're similar and very passionate, very supportive, and a little bit different in some ways, but yeah, I definitely see the connection there. So yeah.
All right. So Ross Dellinger had this. We do have Mike Rodak. And now I tell you what we'll do on the Group of Five, the playoff, and the so-called NIT of football. We'll do that right after we have Mike Rodak, who's going to join us in a minute. He covers Alabama. Max Olson had that transfer portal article. ESPN at 4. David Ubben today at 4:25. Gary Smith covers Tulane. Well, will be good timing with the story that we're going to talk about in the next segment when it comes to the Group of Five and the possibility maybe more real than we thought, although still work to be done on a separate championship. And then Mickey Spagnola will check in from Cowboys training camp with the Cowboys at DallasCowboys.com and Paul's Top 5. We hit pretty much all the stories. The Lombardi watch list was out today. RG3 and Sam Ponder have been released by ESPN. And I asked a guy who's kind of an agent in a way that knows the media business. I said, so what's next for RG3? He said he will be plucked up quickly. So not sure by whom.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe by TikTok. I know he's very active on. I don't have it. We'll never have it. But I've seen those videos have now bled through onto every other social media platform. So I've seen him post those from time to time. But in all seriousness, I hate that for Robert, and he's a friend of the show, and yeah, I don't feel like he's going to probably be out there too long. I think Fox would be a logical place to come scoop him up. I've seen some other media guys who have talked about, hey, I saw somebody right before we went on the air. I don't know who it was, like somebody from Fox, I think, that was like, hey, I'll do a game with him, but I think he's talented. I know his style's not for everybody. His style's not for me all the time, but I do think he's very talented, and he can contribute on a network still, and he's not he's old by any means. He's a young guy still, so I think he'll get scooped up. Not sure on the Sam Ponder thing, other than she's just been around for forever, and I don't follow any of the other stuff too much, so I don't know if there's anything other to it than just making changes. But yeah,
there's a lot of stuff about like some tweets that they sent out, culture warrior stuff,
political stuff. Okay, well, then no wonder I don't pay attention.
I mean, look, they're cutting back, and both of them make a bunch of money, so it doesn't really matter why, because they were going to cut somebody back anyway. So I don't know, and a
lot of times too, that can just be like an excuse to make something political. Is like, oh, they got fired because they were this, and when in reality it's like, oh, actually it was just a budget cut.
If they fired ESPN broadcasters and analysts for political takes, they would have nobody left.
Right, exactly.
It's just
So, but I think that RG3. I think NBC should really look into hiring him, because Olympics, he knows that stuff. He's really good. He'd be really entertaining on it, especially the track and field part of it. He was doing some track and field for ESPN. So, yeah, it sucks that he's not there. Both of them are going to have jobs pretty quick if they want them.
I think, and what the agent told me, a TV guy, has represented RG3 in a way to help him get in front of people, said he will be taken up very quickly. When we come back, Mike Rodak covers Alabama on the Kalen DeBoer era and more. And where you will get into that Group of Five NIT-type championship idea on the Ross Dellinger and other stories today. This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. Dr. Steve Childress sat down with me after I went to see him 3 or 4 different times back in COVID year and right after that. And these 2 teeth, he said, they're coming out. At some point, they're coming out. We're going to have to do this here. And that was in the middle of, like, possibly surrounded by a root canal or 2, because I didn't take care of my dental work the way you need to. It wasn't as if I didn't brush my teeth and floss occasionally or use those little picks. I did, but I just didn't do it very well. And on top of that, I was sabotaging my dental work because of a lot of Diet Coke and a lot of lozenges, a lot of sweets, and a lot of candy. And it came back to haunt me. Dr. Childress gave me a game plan. I've been doing that daily now for almost 3.5 years. And he has been the reason why, because what he said, he was giving me truth serum. Dr. Steve Childress and other dentists that are inside Stonewood Dental, Texan specialists, hygienists, and more for teeth cleaning and for serious reconstruction surgery. It's Stonewood Dental. My dentist is Dr. Steve Childress in Robinson, Texas.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Offering over 50 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and 10 cycling classes with morning and evening classes available. New state-of-the-art bikes that allow you to compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow, losing inches in weight the right way. There's a kids club included with your membership, plus sauna and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts, plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior pro Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Mike Rodak covers Alabama. Bama 247. He joins us on 365 Sports with Paul Craig, and I'm David Smoke. Mike, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. How would you say the first, been 3 weeks or so of the fall camp have gone for Alabama, even though that's always a generic question, but just the way things look?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a SEC football team, which, if you asked me on January 12th or 13th, when everything had just gone down with Nick Saban, there was a lot of questions on how the transition would go and, would this all crumble? And, I mean, it looks like a team that, as they've been picked by a lot of people, are number 5 in the country, number 3 or 4 in the SEC. It still looks like a pretty good product on the field. And, we're actually getting to see practice, which is new, from the Nick Saban era, or at least the last 4 years in the Nick Saban era, we weren't allowed to watch practice. So just the mere fact that our eyes are out there is something different.
Mike, obviously the depth is not going to be the same. They lost 31 players in the portal. That's not a number they ever really had to deal with before. But they've got some talented guys. They got some talented guys back in the portal. But is that the real concern that, they won't be able to weather the storm with, 5-star, 5-star, 5-star on the 3 deep for at least another year or two?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that is a concern. That's something that Nick Saban's mentioned, when he's been on TV talking about Alabama, which is, something I think we're all still getting used to here. And it's something that's going to be kind of lingering around this team is the weekly opinion of Nick Saban. But that is something that he's mentioned. Is depth is a concern. And they've been fortunate so far in that they've been very healthy, in training camp so far. They did have one injury at wide receiver in spring, with Jalen Hale missing the season, the Texas native. But, you look at Texas and they've lost running backs. You look at Notre Dame losing its offensive tackle. Like Alabama's avoided that sort of situation. If they do have that at some point during the year, and this season with the 12-team playoff could be longer, there would be some concerns. I think the offensive line would be a big area where if they lose a starter, and they have some really good ones up there, that would be a problem. The secondary has a lot of young players, a lot of inexperience. If they lose the starter to an injury there, that would also be a problem. There's some positions, as usual, are deeper than others. But there's definitely some areas where I would have major concerns about this team if they had an injury or two.
A lot of buzz, a lot of talk about Jalen Milroe. I mean, there always is with a starting quarterback, but after some of the glimpses we saw last year and just having another year under his belt and now obviously a very fun offense to play in, just what's the kind of excitement level and what's maybe some noticeable differences as Jalen returns this year with all that experience he garnered a year ago?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely the unquestioned leader of this team. He's the guy that I think all the players are looking to. He was a team captain by the end of last year, but people forget he began last season in the quarterback battle. I mean, there was the whole cake in the oven analogy from Nick Saban at media days last year, and there was a lot of questions going into even that Texas game last year, and then coming out of it, he gets benched. I think confidence-wise, leadership-wise, that didn't have a great effect on him. But in the 12 months since, he's really developed a different level of confidence where, you walk around that building, that Jalen Milroe's in charge, in terms of, the locker room. So that's a big difference. But in terms of the offense, I mean, we'll just have to see exactly how he fits into this. I think Kalen DeBoer has shown he can really open it up in the passing game. I do think he wants to have a precision passer that can move the chains and get those first downs. Milroe has shown some of that, but I think there's still some questions on just a down in and down out basis. Is he making the right decisions? Is he making the right reads? Is he touching the ball and running when he should? Those are all, pretty big questions with him, and we'll just have to see what happens when, they actually play a game.
How much the throw against Auburn was obviously a miracle type play. Then they beat Georgia. Obviously, right there right on the cusp of possibly beating Michigan. How much of those last 3 games feeds him? How much carryover do you feel like you might see from him?
Yeah, I agree. There was that month of November for him, the LSU game where he really outdueled Jaden Daniels. He goes to Kentucky and has a great game. Has the winning play against Auburn, even though maybe the whole product in that game wasn't great, and then has really the marquee game. Even though the stat line wasn't out of this world, for him to go and do what he did against Georgia, avoid mistakes against that defense, play a really clean game, that was what he needed to do. His Michigan game was not great. I think the offensive line was an issue for him, but he also made some bad decisions. He fumbled the ball in a pretty key moment, and that's the last game that he played. So that is one of the things. It's like, I think there's been a lot of positive momentum around him in whatever it's been, 9 months since almost, but that's still the last game he played. He hasn't really been on the field since. So, we'll have to see, just again, what happens when in their first 2 games are against Western Kentucky and South Florida, and he might put up 300 yards passing and whatever the case may be. It's really going to be going to Wisconsin and then coming back and playing Georgia at home, where I think we're going to see where Jalen Milroe is as a 4th-year senior.
How do you feel about Ty Simpson and the guys behind him on the depth chart right now?
I think Ty is a really interesting case because he's a guy that was a borderline 5-star prospect, has really not played almost at all at Alabama. He has not transferred. He's just kind of squatted and waited his turn, and I think is still, I don't know if he would ever publicly say this, and we really haven't talked to him, but I'm sure he's thinking in the back of his head, if Jalen Milroe has a few bad games this year, there's probably going to be some people calling for me to step in. I mean, he had a chance to play a little bit against South Florida last year when Milroe was benched. There was rumblings among fans, during that Rose Bowl against Michigan, should they put Ty Simpson into this game? And if things don't go well early in this year for Alabama, I think we might hear Simpson's name bubble up. And he's gotten better behind the scenes, like in the spring, in the fall. Like he's made strides. And again, he's just kind of stuck around when he could have gone somewhere else and played. So he's really that guy. The other two guys in the depth chart are younger, and we'll have to see what happens to them long term because they have Keelan Russell, also from Texas, coming in as a 5-star quarterback next year.
I was going to ask you about the fact that there's just a couple of Texas guys on the roster. Usually Bama has, a handful of guys under Saban, and they've got Milroe, obviously, but you also mentioned Jalen Hale. He's the only other Texan on this year's roster. No, he had the major injury. Just what's the latest on him?
Well, a couple others, too. Jam Miller, the running back from Texas, their starting right guard. Jaden Roberts could be a day 2 NFL draft pick next year, also from Texas. So they do have a few. But Jalen Hale it's tough to say. I don't think they're willing to say he's absolutely not going to play this year. I think the odds are probably still against it. If it does happen, it's probably later in the season in the playoff. If they go deep, obviously it's January 20th is the national championship game this year. So theoretically, there's a little bit of runway there. I think there's a little bit more optimism recently than there was in the spring when it happened. But I think the best or the most likely course of action is that he probably misses this year and that they try to get him back and up to speed next spring.
By the way, for those who have not seen this, Mike wrote a phenomenal story. These are the stories I love to read. 10 years ago, Kalen DeBoer slept on the floor of a 2-bedroom apartment at Eastern Michigan. In one bedroom was Ryan Grubb. In the other was Ron McKeefrey, who is now the culture guy for Alabama. How much fun did you have kind of tracking this thing down and kind of give us a little background on all that?
Yeah, I mean, Kalen DeBoer is a coach who kind of came out of nowhere, I think, for a lot of people, not only in Alabama, but in college football, because he came up in, North Dakota, South Dakota, Sioux Falls, and was really not on the radar for most college football fans until maybe he was at Washington last year. I don't think a lot of people knew him until last year. So he's a guy that, has some humble beginnings, even 10 years ago at Eastern Michigan, being the coordinator and, just trying to move up the ladder and living with Ryan Grubb, who's always been his kind of right-hand man. His offensive coordinator at Washington was going to be the offensive coordinator at Alabama until the Seattle Seahawks came calling, and they stole him as their coordinator. So, Ron McKeefrey's been a strength coach all around, college football, and he is that guy who's left with, DeBoer, who's been around him for a while now, and trying to reestablish that culture, because Alabama had Scott Cochran that I think a lot of college football fans would recognize. He was at Alabama, he was at Georgia, was kind of that hoorah sort of guy in the locker room with the players, and they need that again. And maybe they have that in McKeefrey, but Kalen DeBoer, I will say, is a very down-to-earth, humble, just very grounded coach. Just talking to him, he's just a regular guy. It's a very big change from what everybody's used to with Nick Saban.
One of the things I kind of thought about with Kalen DeBoer and Nick Saban was, I mean, not that he was afraid to take a chance, but he was not the, kind of new school, let's go for it on every fourth down, let's damn the torpedoes. He was just so confident that, yeah, sure, I'll punt it at your 42-yard line, knowing that my defense is going to stop you and we might get a defensive touchdown. Kalen DeBoer, I think one of the things that fans are probably going to enjoy or, need to take Tums for is the fact that fourth down's not really a thing to him. He'll say damn the torpedoes and let's go.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a different style, a little bit more of I want to say a modern style, but, I think Nick Saban, to some extent wanted to embrace analytics, and he had tons of people on his staff doing all that. And giving him that information. But at the end of the day, I think he was still an old school football coach at heart. I mean, Kalen DeBoer is 30 years younger. It's just, I think he thinks differently. And we'll have to see how it all works. I remember Lane Kiffin coming into Bryant-Denny Stadium about 3 years ago and going for it on every single fourth down. And Ole Miss was out of that game in about 10 minutes. But you do have to be careful with some of that. But, I'm sure there will be a point in time where fans don't like that something that Kalen DeBoer does, or they'll get mad at him about a certain decision. But until that happens, he's kind of that younger, brighter sort of coach that, again, just is a change of pace around here.
Mike, great stuff. Thank you. Love when we get you on the show talking about Alabama. Kalen DeBoer, the era. Mike Rodak with us from Bama 247 on 365 Sports as they churn towards, of course, the end of the month and the start of the college football season. Around the corner, Max Olson on that long and very in-depth story about the transfer portal, the differences between last year and the year before, some of the trends, what's happening, what does it mean? He'll join us today in a segment in just a minute. We'll also get into something when it comes to the group of 5 teams and what might be on the horizon that appears to be probably on the horizon. In fact, let's do that now because Craig's still here. Let's get into that now.
Well, Craig does need to leave, don't you?
Yeah. You got 5 minutes?
What's that? Sorry.
Sorry. You have 5 minutes to just kind of get into this topic?
Sure.
All right. Well, you don't have to stay. You can go ahead and leave. By the way, we're wearing almost same colors today. Ross Dellinger today.
By the way, Alabama needs to update their roster because they only have 2 Texans listed. So now he corrected me, and I need to admonish Alabama. That's their mistake, not mine.
A lot of teams do this crap now.
They don't update the rosters until it's like the first day of the game.
You know who the best place to go to for the college rosters? OurLads.com.
Yes, I was just on it.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
For example, there was a player, one of the running backs from Texas who got hurt, Baxter, and then it was Miller. And I went to their depth chart based on that site, and they had it already set up. I mean, like before the end of the day.
Yeah, I don't know if it's always 100%, but it's pretty
close.
Yeah,
it's really, really close.
It's better than half the sites.
Right. No, I mean, like I just mentioned, Alabama's isn't even all the way updated, and it's 2 weeks until the game. So, and I know Baylor's is hit or miss on that as well at times. So it might just be the company that runs all those sites. But
so Ross Dellinger, next week in Dallas, group of 5 will gather, the commissioners, to discuss the pressing issues, including the possibility of a reshaped G5 postseason tournament incorporating the bowls, an NIT of football, so to speak. We have discussed this possibility. This thing seems to have more than just speculation, or as Ross has said before, what is that word that he's used when he's put something out there that they're discussing? But your thoughts about this. You guys have the USF AD tomorrow, and Mike Kelly, maybe he can give you some feedback on that. But it seems like based on listening or reading what Mike Oresco said, who's now retired, it does seem like this is a matter of time.
Yeah, I think you have to do it. I think, in my opinion, you have to create something that can protect you from the very narrow window that the power conferences will use to push you out. It doesn't take much.
I think this almost forces them to do so.
Yeah. I mean,
are you going to have my question immediately? I like the idea, and I think that any school that doesn't have anything guaranteed should be exploring whatever they possibly can, and leagues and conferences, and I guess it's the same thing. But G5s, however you want to label, whoever needs to be searching for more money, this is certainly an avenue to do that, and I like the idea. But my first question is the G5 champ going to the playoff, or are they playing in this tournament? Like, how does that work? They play in this tournament?
It's a great question. No, I would think that the highest-ranked G5 conference champion goes to the big
one. So then the tournament is for the runner-up G5.
So,
right.
But that's why they call it the NIT.
So the NIT, that's the whole point of it? Okay, that makes sense.
They're comparing it to the NIT.
Yeah.
It's just weird to not have, the best team in the G5.
Okay, but what if, let's just say Memphis, Metal, we love you. They go to the college football playoff. But Boise and Tulane and think of one or two others are really top 25 teams.
Yeah.
Do they go to this group of 5 NIT tournament to win it, or do they want to play in other bowl games, even though the bowl games are going to be a part of their tournament?
I would think that the bowl games, the bowl games, especially some of the other ones that are probably barely hanging on.
Not the big ones, though. If you're Boise and you could go play in like the 7th best bowl game with the biggest payout, you're going to turn that down to go play in like the much lower level.
Here's what I would say. I think that they need to be flexible on, look, if you've got a couple teams that get in and then you want to do this G5 playoff thing where you can get some more games, sell some more television product, I think that is where they have to go. Because, look, there's companies out there that want to buy things right now. You know, you need to get your revenue where you can get it.
Well, let me read part of this article, too.
Yeah.
You're great. Good point. Will the group of 5 maintain its one automatic qualifying spot? Will leagues such as the SEC and Big Ten eventually get multiple automatic berths, not just the conference champion? This is something that they're going to be discussing this next week in Dallas, and that'll be something I almost wish I could be there to get some interviews.
Well, I mean, if Ross is floating it, that means he's hearing from SEC and Big Ten folks that they're pushing for automatic bids, and not that hasn't been mentioned before, but he's a great reporter. I do feel like there are things, though, that you can read through and say, well, clearly somebody's in his ear saying that the SEC is looking for automatic bids. Now, granted, you could have come to that conclusion months ago, right? That's not necessarily new news that they would be looking to do so, or the Big Ten for that matter. But clearly, if he's mentioning it again, it's a common thing that he's hearing.
Because they're meeting next week.
Right, and because they're meeting. And so, you know, I just feel like there's things he says when you hear him say it enough times, like you put weight behind that. And so that's clearly not going away, the idea of having more automatic bids for those leagues. So, yeah, if you're the G5, you have to be looking at every avenue, including one where you don't have anything guaranteed. And so I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I would watch some of it, if not all of it, depending on the matchups. But I just do have those questions about, like, how would that work if – I get that it's the NIT, but really it's the NIT because only the best team in the G5 is not in it. Or they are, and if they are, well, then that's a huge story because that's the split. Like, the split's done. The split between the G5 and the Power Leagues is over because the G5 has decided that their teams are going to play in a playoff. So that's what I'm just interested in learning about.
Gloria Navarez, who we've had on the show, Mountain West Commissioner, we're open to all the ideas. We're interested in some value. What if it's like an NIT of football? To be clear, though, Group of 5 leaders are not interested in relinquishing the automatic spot in the new expanded playoff. We're not touching that, she said. But MAC Commissioner John Steinbrecher, in other ways, everything is on the table.
Well, and look, the big bowls are now taken up by the playoff, right? So they're not getting a second one in one of those games.
Yeah, it's not like they're going to have the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah, so they're not going to have the Fiesta Bowl to go to. So then you're talking about the difference between the Pop-Tarts Bowl and the Bahamas Bowl, you know, kind of in things. And so some of those bowls need...
Okay.
And do they want to do this as opposed to, like, they can host Pitt versus West Virginia and probably get 30,000 more fans?
But, yeah.
So there's obviously a lot of questions like with any other idea, but I like that they're exploring something.
They're getting $115 million annually from being a automatic berth into the college football playoff, splitting among just the Group of 5 schools.
But they also have to guard against the fact that any excuse that the Power 4 has to put them out, let's just say both teams that they get in over the next 2 years get absolutely shredded.
Liberty.
Okay, yeah. So say that happens. They get absolutely thrown in a wood chipper. Then those chips get picked up and thrown back in the wood chipper. You don't trust that committee not to go, well, we need to protect this or use whatever flimsy-ass excuse they can to get their way.
That doesn't mean Liberty's not the only one that's ever been blown out of one of these playoff games. No, but like if it's Liberty,
if it's Boise State, if whoever it is, if they just happen to get blown out, look, the other game the same day could also be a blowout.
But what about Tulane USC?
Okay, yeah, but
I mean, we can do the what about thing all the time.
Well, I know, but it's not just blown out.
You're missing my point. My point is,
that you're saying that if they get blown out, they're giving them another reason to get rid of them.
The committee will take it whatever's chance. And when you tell them, like, well, USC and Georgia played in that other game, and Georgia beat USC 38-7. That's a blowout too. Should we kick USC out? And they're like, oh, a different thing. No, it's the same thing.
Like Georgia TCU.
Yeah. So like
Craig, I know you got to go. You got to go. You want to wrap it up?
Yeah. No, I think it's a good idea. I think they have to kick the tires on everything, and I think I do think there's like some miscommunication and misunderstanding going on here. Is it's not in their purview to make the choice. They're obviously not going to volunteer to fall on the sword of $100 million+ and eliminate their own champion. I just find the idea of an NIT championship when the only team missing is the best team from the group is just kind of a little odd, but I like the idea of trying to explore it. I'm just curious about how exactly it would be set up, and those aren't going to be details that we know for some time. So just on the surface of this story, I think it's a great idea, and I'm curious to see kind of how the dominoes move because, yes, the G5 champ's not going to not want to be in the playoff, but if there comes a situation where Liberty keeps getting into this playoff and finally the committee's like, no more of this G5 crap,
I can
that's
see that.
automatic. We're going to make it to where it's now more likely that the 6th best SEC team gets in, then that's where the G5 maybe has no choice, and they already have this ball rolling to where it would be a smooth transition, although not what they want to do. So, yeah, there's a lot of questions, and this is a little bit of a ways out, but it is an interesting thing to discuss.
The 12-team playoff, Craig, you can leave when you need to. The 12-team format, if you took the last 10 years based on conference champions, rankings, etc., the Big Ten would have 38 teams that would have made it, the SEC 34, the Big 12 19, the ACC 15, the Group of 5 10, and Notre Dame 4.
Yeah.
So they would have at least had some pretty good representation. Not about once every year, but
you'll forgive me if I don't fully trust the committee and their intentions.
But this is a meeting. This one is among the Group of 5 commissioners.
So, because I think they need to have any kind of contingency plan ready to go, even if it's two things in conjunction. You get a team, say Memphis goes to the playoff this year, Memphis goes to the playoff, everybody else has another one, to put eyeballs on the Group of 5. Because every chance that the P4 has gotten to put a dent in you, they have. And any chance they get to take away something that you are a part of that they want, they'll get it. If the door has to open this much for them to shove them out of it.
Yeah. Well, what about Liberty, Oregon? Yeah, but what about Tulane, USC? Well, that's different.
No,
yeah.
My point being, like, those things, like Tulane, USC won't be the argument that they hear. They'll just hear the Liberty, Oregon argument and be like, we can't have this.
This isn't politics, but it is. They need to hear that Tulane beat USC.
Yeah,
I don't give a damn what their excuses
are. They're not going to listen to that. That's going to be one of those things where, hey, I thought that you didn't want to do a Supreme Court justice during a lame duck period. Like, oh, no. It's different now.
It's different now.
It's different because we're in charge. Like, no. You can't say it's different because we're in charge. That's the issue that I think that the G5 should be scared of, because the P4 will not, they don't care what good reasoning they have. They just need one medium reason to do that.
By Ross bringing up in his report that there could be multiple automatic bids for the SEC and the Big Ten means that has been up for discussion. By the way, what does this mean? What's up to those who don't have what it is and the other things?
I have no idea.
Garrett?
I can't decipher that one.
What's up to those who don't have what it is and the other things? I have randomly just thrown up things on the chat room, and I don't think anyone's trying to even touch them. That's just one of those things that whoever can figure out what I just said by what I put in the chat, will get a 365 Sports camouflage hat. And here's the worst part. I don't know what the hell I just said.
Okay.
But someone who's close enough might win a 365 Sports cap. Colt Barber brought some of these down, so I got 3 of them on the table, but there's one of them right here.
Well, one of them's not camo, one of them's just black.
What is this one?
That's
No,
camo.
the black one's, no one's touching that one.
Okay.
The camo, like Boo Weekly or Larry, the
cable guy?
The cable trucker guy. Yeah, whatever it is, Bracket Cat, way behind on the video, but that greater than 12 shirt can be found on Charlie Hustle. Paul, didn't you buy me something from Charlie Hustle?
I did, that Jerome Tang shirt.
Send me the link. Bracket Cat, put the link up in the, I may buy one of those. Put the link up in the chat room.
The Nebraska one? They've got Nebraska stuff at Charlie Hustle.
No, they do, but this is for the greater than 12 Big 12 shirt.
Oh, yeah. I think it's a cool, my brother-in-law, I think, bought one, so.
Somebody said, I'm not going to get there, Bobby. Well, I'll say it. It's because, God, sometimes you just have to laugh no matter where you are. Is that a Kamala quote? Bobby B, that's the best answer. Buy a hat like that and you get a free bowl of soup. I don't know what I really said. I don't. S. Michael DeHart, I'm just as confused as Paul Catalina and the Mothership crew.
Yeah.
Sir blah, blah, blah. Smokey, you're saying that I'm great. That might be worth the hat right there. I don't think that's what I said, though.
Yeah. I'm gonna.
Oh, excuse me, MC. Kamala.
I'm gonna throw it out. I'm gonna throw it out there. If you're gonna pick on either side for stumbling over words, like, we can do this all day.
I knew you would have a response to that.
We can. Like, that's the problem I have with both sides is the hypocrisy.
That's not what anyone said about stumbling. No one was saying no. Well, stop. You couldn't help.
I can't. Let's be
no
real
one said
here.
they were stumbling. They were just talking about it. They threw a bunch of words together, which is what I did. All right, when we come back in the 4 o'clock hour, Max Olson, ESPN. This is 365 Sports. TexasBeefHouse.com. That box, that styrofoam box showed up at my door. It was on Tuesday. Some cap sirloin steaks that I bought online at the last auction. They have another one coming up at the end of the month at TexasBeefHouse.com, where you can go and order your beef products, whatever you may want. And then they have another online auction through Bid on Beef at the end of the month. More on that when that time comes. Had a conversation with George Duvall, Aaron Duvall, Dr. Duvall, Duvall family that owns and has done what they've done with TexasBeefHouse.com with the Angus cattle and the distribution and what they do to raise and make sure that these Angus are like top flight, clean, antibiotic free, all of that. And their steaks are delicious. Their ground hamburger patties. They have a garlic sausage that is delicious and so much more. TexasBeefHouse.com, your home for the best in beef products. TexasBeefHouse.com.
Score big savings at the Kickoff to Savings event at Richard Carr Buick. A first-year All-American and a 2024 Car and Driver Magazine Editor's Choice. The all-new Buick Envista starts at only $23,990. Or make the winning drive in a 2024 Buick Encore GX SUV and save $4,000 for non-GM car owners. Qualified buyers get 0.9% financing and no payments for 90 days. Score your deal at the Kickoff to Savings event going on now at Richard Carr Buick.
At Richard Carr, we give you more.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with the Baylor Club membership today.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Containing only 95 calories and 2.6 carbs.
Eric in the chat room, stay tuned. I'm going to give you a number right now, if you could remember this one, 254-339-1122. Eric, send me your mailing address for the 365 Sports camouflage hat. Eric, in the chat room, is the one that brought up the comment that I just randomly said a bunch of words. It was about the 5 not having enough juice to squeeze with the story we just talked about. Max Olson, ESPN, joins us, 365 Sports. Max, I want to get to your article about the transfer portal, but what are your thoughts and how do you think it would work if the group of 5 schools end up having their own championship playoff?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting concept that I think, I don't get the sense that it has been talked about in a real serious nature in the past few years, just because I think that, certainly even with now that we're going to the 12-team playoff and there is some access for the G5, and obviously we have a history of really good G5 teams getting left out. I think it's always a question of well, who's going to pay for it? How can we financially benefit if we try to split that off? And does it just sort of make the G5 from a perception standpoint, national perception, is it just get viewed as a less important kind of league that people kind of tune out? So I think that there's financial implications, but I also think there's just from a popularity standpoint and is that better for the sport if they have their own postseason? It's a tough one. I would watch it. I would be excited about it. But I think it's hard to say until we kind of go through this playoff for a year or two and kind of see. I do think that people need to and will embrace the G5 race for that spot this year, and we've never really had that before. And even in the past when Cincinnati gets in, it's okay, well, they got smoked by Alabama, so congrats. It's I do think the stakes are a little bit different this year in a little bit more exciting way. But I also understand big picture, the gap is growing. And so if it does feel like we just cannot compete at all with even the low level Power 4 schools, then these are the things you got to talk about.
Max, the reason I would do it partially is just because after these first 2 years, if you give them a slight crack in the door to shove you out, they're going to do it and get that other playoff spot for themselves. I mean, there's no love lost. There's nobody really defending the G5 except the G5.
Yeah, and we're probably, I think SMU probably, as we sit here today, I mean, unless the ACC ends up in some sort of situation where it has to backfill, we're probably at the point where there's not as much opportunity for Group of 5 schools to move up into the Power 4. Now that SMU took that spot, the Big 12 obviously added a couple too. So yeah, I don't. It's from an ambition standpoint, it's a tricky thing. And if we have more conference realignment in the future, it's probably Power 4 schools moving to other Power 4 leagues, and that just increases the need for those leagues, if they get bigger, to have more playoff spots. So yeah, I think that also kind of factors into this problem a few years down the road.
Max came out with a banger, his article at ESPN. He does an incredible job when it comes to the transfer portal. And yesterday you came out full throttle with all the information, the differences between 1 year and the year before. In your opinion, what was the biggest difference in the last year?
I think, so obviously the number of transfers keeps going up. And so, this for the past 12 months here, you had more than 2,700 FBS scholarship players go in the portal, which makes up about 25% of all college football players when you think about it, which is crazy. And we're just used to that now. A year ago, it was 20%. This year, it's 25%. And we just kind of get the hang of it. But it goes to show you how different these teams are going to be from year to year now. I think the big leap that you notice this year is that the number of players who transferred to Power 4 schools jumped from 450 to over 850. That's a big leap. And what that tells you is there's just been way more attrition on Power 4 rosters this year. And, now we're in a place where anyone you lose, you can replace. So I think you're seeing way more roster turnover now, and not just at the year 1, year 2 situations, although that's where the numbers are the strongest. But there's a lot more players transferring to Power 4 schools. There's over 100 FCS guys transferring to Power 5 as well. And, what that means is if there are 1,000 guys that are transferring on to Power 4 rosters, it just means there's fewer high school opportunities, for these high school recruits to get on Power 4 rosters. I think we're going to keep kind of evolving in that direction And that's tough. I mean, we'll see how the 105 change, affects that. But certainly, I think we are just getting used to, like, the one that kind of blew me away was in 2 years, the number of schools that have lost 20 or more transfers in an off season has tripled. So that's just normal now. There's like over 70, and then that was the case this off season. And again, this is just like becoming the norm.
Max, did on the schools that had the strong retention, which is the fifth bullet point in your column, I've been trying to find a commonality between all of them, and there's not. Like, now, if you look at the ones who lost the most, coaching change, struggle, perhaps a coaching change in the offing, one of those things, or there was just a coaching change, those kind of things during that year.
Sure.
But they're the ones that have strong retention, there is no commonality to them at all.
Well, I think, like Rice is going to be an outlier. Rice only lost 3 transfers this offseason, which is incredible, and it speaks to what they're doing over there. I think they, in talking to some people who work at these schools and kind of bringing up like, hey, there's only 7 schools in FBS this year that lost fewer than 10 transfers. What are they doing right? First of all, I think you do have a bunch of those programs are kind of just trying to do kind of the developmental, kind of blueprint here, whether it's, and a lot of them are in the Midwest. So it's like Oklahoma State and Nebraska and Iowa and Kansas, these programs that are not maybe necessarily trying to go super heavy on the portal. They'll do it a little bit, but they're not trying to. But the funny thing is, like, when you talk to these coaches who have not lost very many transfers, like historically, you'd expect them to say like, well, we've got a great culture of guys that want to leave, guys want to finish their degrees here, and there's a family, they don't want to leave the family, all that kind of stuff. And I think this offseason, when I kind of reach out to those folks and say, hey, why you guys have so few transfers? It's like, yeah, NIL, NIL collective. We had a good plan to retain our guys. We spent money to keep guys out of the portal. Like, that's just kind of what it is now. It's culture and it's cash. It's being able to, if you like what you've got, you've got to be willing to invest to keep guys and renegotiate and take care of those situations, before the portal opens. And I think some of those programs did a good job of that. Obviously, at a place like Oklahoma State, like, look, Ollie Gordon could probably go get $1 million somewhere, but Oklahoma State did a good job of taking care of him and making things right so that there wasn't some danger of him, going in the portal and, say going to like an Ohio State like we saw with Quinshon Judkins.
So Colorado and Dion got a lot of attention for the transfer portal because they brought in so many. G.J. Kinney at Texas State, and there were probably 1 or 2 others. Are teams doing more of what they did than they did 2 years ago?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I think that it's easy to say, oh, you can just flip them faster now. But I think that we are seeing a lot more of that with coaching staffs that are in year 1 or they're coming out of year 1. There's just a lot more instances of like, okay, we're going to lose 30 guys this offseason. We're going to bring in 30 more. And, we're going to have a more veteran team that's got more leadership and got more guys that we recruited. And, sometimes it's a combination of, well, we lost a lot, so we had to add a lot. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it is just like, this is how we want to go about it. And so, obviously Colorado got a lot of heat, a lot of criticism for their approach. And look, there wasn't a program this offseason that cut 50 guys, right? Or cut 20 guys. There wasn't any that had like the attrition to the degree we saw from Colorado last year. But, you do see more programs, like Alabama had 30, and Indiana had more than Colorado this year. Indiana, I think, had 37. And that's Kurt Signetti having a plan and saying, I'm going to bring in 13 guys from James Madison. I'm going to bring in a lot of new faces here and get this thing flipped, and we're going to win. And I think that you are seeing more people trying the prime blueprint. And, we're going to be very interested to see, how much of a difference does that make from a win standpoint. But yeah, I think having the way the roster rules are set up now, if you're starting over on a job, you're taking a very different approach now.
Max, for the 350 kids that are stuck in the portal, how do you think that 105 scholarships will affect them? And are they stuck in the portal because they're intent on being at a certain level, or is it just nobody really genuinely wants them anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a mix of factors there. You got some guys that have academic problems and just don't have the grades to be able to transfer into a place. You got guys that have injury or health problems. You've got legal issues. You've kind of got a mix of just a bunch of guys that they've been in the portal since December or since April, and teams just kind of can't figure out a way to get to bring them in and make it work. And so for those players, I think at this time of year, certainly we're in the middle of camp. So for those players that haven't announced where they're going, and as I wrote the piece, it's more than 350 guys who are on scholarship at FBS teams last year. You really hope that they find a spot at an FCS school or a D2 school or a junior college, or if they're taking a year off, that they go back in the portal in December and find something that works. I think a lot at this time of year, it's going to be tough to find a full scholarship, obviously. But I think the 105 part that I'm just very curious about, because I think that you even heard Kirby Smart say like they're not going to do 105. I think Kirby Smart still wants to have walk-ons at Georgia, and I think that there are still some coaching staff that are like, we need 60, 65 or 70 more than we need 105. Like I think once you get into the season, you put guys on practice squad and stuff like that. The travel roster doesn't need to be that big. So I'm curious to see how coaches build their classes this offseason and how they recruit to that. Are you having to kind of let some guys go to get down to 105? And are you going to just still continue to kind of have a small group of walk-ons that are your scout team guys that, are just good for your program, but they're not going to play a ton? Or do you see programs that view this as, hey, we can finally recruit over 85?
All right, so I want a clarification on that because, again, I'm pretty good at math. So you could have 105 players on scholarship and still have walk-ons, or is it minus whatever you don't have on scholarship that you could have walk-ons?
No, I think that it's just more capping the roster at 105. And so if you want to not put like it now, it's not an 85 limit. They've dropped that, but they've capped it at 105. So you got to decide: do you want to have 105 scholarship players, or do you want to have 85 scholarship players and your collective pays for some guys, which is what a lot of people do now. I think it's more about kind of figuring out what's the right composition of how many guys you actually need to be paying for.
Okay. I kind of read that the first time, and I think the history of the walk-on and sometimes the great stories that come with that, I hope that doesn't get like completely eliminated. It doesn't seem like it will be, but I hope that tradition doesn't get eliminated, because those videos that like mid through the year or at the end of the year or whatever, when someone's placed on scholarship at the end of like in November, those just, to me, that's just awesome. Maybe that's just the innocence of me. Yeah.
They literally make my wife cry like every time, man. Like even if you just kind of you watch college football but you're not addicted to it, like how could you not love that? Yeah, I think that like I hope obviously Kirby Smart was one of those kinds of guys back in the day. Like I hope that those guys, I hope that they still care about maintaining that tradition in their program, and that you don't have coaches just saying, well, the NCAA changed the rules, so now we can't. Like I think that, and ultimately, like, yeah, could Georgia go have 105 blue chip players? Sure, but guys want to play. So I mean, it doesn't really ultimately, like, you're just going to have a ton of guys leave. So I mean, I think it doesn't really serve you to have too many scholarship players, because ultimately, if you're not getting playing time, you're going to transfer.
Max, couple weeks before the season, actually a week now, with the games kicking off next week. Which game will you be on the road much this year, or which is the first game you get to go to?
I think I will be on the road a little bit this season. Yeah, I haven't mapped out the whole schedule here. I think the first one I'll be at probably will be that week 2 night game, Colorado at Nebraska, which is going to be spicy. I think that's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to feel like, I think for both fan bases, that's going to kind of feel like a game that it's not necessarily a must win. It's not a conference game, honestly, but you feel like you got to win that one. And so I think that that's going to be a heck of an environment. And I think I'll be on the road. I'm sure I'll be at plenty of Big 12 games as usual. And I'm excited, guys. I still can't. Like, Paul, have you like wrapped your head around you're going to be watching the Seminoles next weekend?
Yes, I have a fantasy draft at the same time, and so
how in the world?
I know.
We've discussed this. You still haven't gotten out of that.
I tried to move the day or the time of the day, so
oh my gosh.
It's going to be tough. Max, I tried everything I could do to find somebody to pay for me to go to that game, and no one was interested. So I'm going to miss the Aer Lingus College Football Classic this year, and that's a bummer. But I'm anxiously awaiting it. But also now that they're good again, I remember the feeling of now I watch everything equally optimistic and pessimistic. Like I'm happy.
Well, at least you have optimistic in your language or repertoire, because Max and I have pessimistic only when it comes to Nebraska, right?
I don't know, man. It's going to be an interesting team this year. I hear nothing but good things about Raiola. So I think, you got to keep them healthy, but I think they feel like they're going to be a lot better.
Yeah, I just want you guys to be where I am, to where, a 3-point loss to a team that's just kind of good is now tragic. Because that's where it is my brain after 13-0. I can't.
Paul, you are part of the afflicted group now of like, okay, 12-team playoffs. Like, do you need to be in the playoff every year?
Yeah, that's the thing. My thing is at least be close. Like if you don't get in, at least be like make it to the
Florida State.
Yeah, but no, I mean every year, like that's kind of I think it's unrealistic to think that even at 12 teams, like if they're not in the 12-team playoff, the only thing I'll accept is be 15th or 16th and, be just outside of it, but not like if they're not even close to a 12-team playoff, then I'll just fly into a rage.
I get that.
Wait a minute.
That's the scary thing of raising the expectations, which is what they've done for you.
I thought, are you not the same person that discusses? Of course, we don't get into the Cowboys.
No,
I thought your standards have changed.
No, my point is, look, I'm not going to remember a season. Like, I honestly, had Florida State lost the national championship last year after going to the playoff, I would have thought of that season as it makes me sad for a different reason. I'll always remember this last year because they got screwed. But if you have a season where you don't win the national title, I'm not going to look back on that warmly.
No, I'm talking about making the playoff is what I think, Max. If you're not in the 12 annually, is it a disappointment?
It's got to be pretty close. Like, again, where it wouldn't be a massive disappointment is you have a 2-year run where you keep finishing 15th. Like, all right, well, that sucks, but there can be extenuating circumstances for that. But if you go 5 years without getting in, then yeah, I'll be mad. It's 12 teams. You're Florida State. Come on now.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, Florida State's kind of in that spot. If you're a Florida State fan, it's like we've built this roster up. We've got a great coach, one of the best in the country. We've got a great team. And you probably think Clemson's on the decline. You probably don't have a ton of respect for Mario. Like, you probably think we got to be in this all the time.
Yeah, that's you've spoken my truth.
But not the expectations of a Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, and possibly even if Texas can follow up last year with another nice run this year.
But I've been there at that point in my life, and it's fun and terrifying.
Yeah, it is. It wears you out.
It's like skydiving it's like skydiving with a drunk instructor where it might be okay, but
or skydiving without a jacket, without a parachute.
Yeah,
Max, great stuff, man. And I know ESPN's thrilled to have you, and we're always thrilled to have you on the show whenever we can. We appreciate it. Keep doing what you do.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Max Olson, ESPN with us. Had that story yesterday in the on ESPN as far as the transfer portal. Very in depth with a lot of different numbers. We showed some of that to you on Wednesday's show. When we come back, David Ubbin, he's been on paternity leave. So he hadn't written anything in about a month or month and a half. He's next. I remember contacting him about a month or a month and a half ago. He goes, hey, contact me sometime August 13th. I did. He's next. This is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe. 1943, they opened up their doors, and they were in that same area, the same complex or building facility office for up until December of 2022. Now, if you're on the right side of I-35 or the east side of I-35 and you take the loop or Highway 6, you will curl around, headed north on 340, and boom, there it is. What a tremendous place they have now. They still have the same handshake. It means something. Sometimes businesses say it, but they mean it. And that's how they have been able to weather all the different changes in whatever, the United States economy, et cetera, since 1943. But now they have a fantastic facility. And, of course, pipe, steel, and metal, that's what they are experts at. They can also help you find contractors for something that needs to be built that won't be delayed over and over again. They know those contractors that do the job right. Pioneer Steel and Pipe since 1943, pioneerboys.com.
Get ready to make this the summer event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive home in the 2024 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab with a massive $15,000 off. Plus, experience the massive selection and the luxury of the Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer with exceptional discounts. First responders get an additional $500 off. Come see what all the excitement's about at Allen Samuels in Waco. Your friend in the car business.
Come by. Let's be friends.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
Craig's at Baylor football practice. He'll be back sometime around 5 o'clock or so, depending on how much of an open session they have. And we're now joined by David Ubben, Paul Catalina, David Smoke, 365 Sports. So, David, what was it like the last month for you?
It's been an interesting summer. It's our second, so you sort of know what you're expecting, but we've got 2 under 2, so figuring out how to kind of do this all summer has been an adventure. So we're excited for the season. It's going to be a good fall, I think.
So let me ask you this: you were on paternity leave. Who is it more healthy for? That the man now has paternity leave, because I know a guy that's in DJ does a host show up in Dallas, and he was out for a while. This is something that not everybody provides. Is it better for the husband or for the wife?
I mean, I think everybody sort of wins. I think, logistically, the first time around, as anybody who's a parent, you don't really know what you're doing. You got to sort of figure it out. And the second time, you think you know what you're doing, but then you learn that your second kid is a little bit different. So I think it's good for everybody, personally.
David Ubben, theathletic.com, with us on 365 Sports.
So, David, and we've asked a couple of guests about this today, but there's talk of a possible G5 only playoff, the NIT of the CFP, so to speak. Do you think that's something they need to seriously consider and maybe do?
Well, there was so much resistance for a long time, and, Mike Oresco was kind of at the front of the line there saying no, because it further draws a line in the sand between the haves and the have-nots. We want to be lumped in with the haves, the power stick moniker that, people made fun of for a long time for the Americans. But now that you have access, I think there might be something to it. I mean, if you can make money off of it, it's probably the right thing for you. And I think there's probably money to be made off of it. I think people will watch. I think it'll be more compelling than bowl games. And, instead of throwing two teams in the New Orleans Bowl, having some games, whether it be on campus or whatever, games with some stakes and, another championship to play for, I think would be an interesting product. I think there's a case against it for a lot of the reasons that Mike Oresco always had. But then I think you raised the question, too, of, well, what happens to the team that is the so-called best G5 team that gets in the playoff and, maybe gets out or whatever? Do you think about including them? I don't really know. The logistics are kind of a nightmare here, but I think in terms of pure product, I'm probably one of the sickos that would watch everything, but I'd watch every second of that. And I think there's a lot of people that probably feel the same way.
Yeah, because if you're Memphis or you're Boise State or whoever it might be, Tulane, and you get in and then you lose in the first round of the college football playoff as the top G5 conference champion, and everybody else, you made it. You made the group of five $115 million for that spot. And then everybody else keeps playing for 2 or 3 weeks. So what is that going to feel like?
Exactly. I think that's something they're going to have to sort out with all of this and try to figure out, do teams want that? Is there some sort of contingency? I mean, I don't know. These are complex questions. My guess would be that they're just excluded. It's a little bit reminiscent of, in the FBS level, the HBCUs. Like, if you win the HBCU league, you don't participate in the playoffs. You go straight to the Celebration Bowl. And the only people that are participating in the FCS playoffs are, like, HBCU schools that, didn't win their league. And it's always struck me as kind of an odd thing, an odd way to set it up. And this, I think, would be kind of similar to that. So it's not perfect, but, again, I think like a lot of things in college sports, it just comes down to, is there money to be made here? And if there is, I think ultimately you're going to see this become a reality.
David, is there a team in the rankings that you thought was overrated or underrated in the AP Top 25?
For me, I get all the cases on paper for it. I understand what there is, but do we really think Notre Dame is one of the 10 best teams in the country? I don't know. I just don't know about all that. I need to see a little bit more. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they prove that they are. They're going to have to schedule the ability to do that. But if you lose, to A&M, pretty early out of the gate there in week one, that's I don't know about that. NC State, I think, also is a team that jumps out to me that, I don't know that I'm buying the Grayson McCall, Robert and I marriage there. As far as underrated, I think there's a lot of upside for Tennessee. I think there's a lot of upside for LSU. Those teams are kind of hovering around that 15 mark. And K-State, I think, really intrigues me in the Big 12 as well, and Kansas too. So I think of that group, I'd probably say LSU has the most interesting upside to me. I think they're going to fix that defense with Blake Baker, and I think Garrett Nussmeier is a really, really good player, and Joe Sloan, their new OC. It's a big reason why Jaden Daniels became what he came. So I think there's a lot of upside there in terms of a team that's probably underrated for the Tigers.
Explain to me, if you don't mind, what you think the identity is of the Big 12.
I think, it's fun. Like, it's good football. Like, yeah, are these going to be the best teams in the country? I don't think you have to even make that case. But they're good teams with good players. And I do think there is real value in, you look around at the Big Ten, there's only like 5 or 6 teams, and that's a marked difference from the past, and only because of the expansion that can really compete there. And the SEC, this is sort of a more open year than a lot of years, but the Big 12, I mean, there's like a dozen teams that you could say could realistically win like 10 games and are going to go into the league, into the season feeling like they can. And that's pretty, that level of parity I think is really interesting. I mean, this is going to be just a fist fight every single week. And again, it's good product, it's good teams and good players. And I think that's a pretty big selling point for the Big 12. I think that's the identity for the league. Is there's a lot more parity in this league, and I think you're going to see a lot more diversity of champions than you will have seen, even in the future Big 12 and future SEC.
The Big 10 in particular, I think that's got to be a selling point for the Big 12 against them. Is the Big 10, even with 18 teams now, is not going to cycle through as many champions. I mean, Ohio State is still going to be in that conference, and they've won it pretty much. Them and Michigan have won it pretty much every year except for a couple. The Big 10 and ACC are more similar than, say, the SEC and Big 12 are, in that there's more diversity in the champions than that, and SEC and Big 10 really just kind of, or ACC and Big 10 kind of just rotate between a couple of schools.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, you look at the new Big Ten, obviously Oregon's going to be a factor this year. We'll see what Jed Fish does and what Washington becomes. We'll see if Lincoln can kind of get USC off the mat. But, at the end of the day, you're still talking about 4 or 5 teams. So I'm with you on that. And I think this league is going to be, I think, the most fun league from week to week, because you have, you're going to have the champions, going on the road, to a team that's in like 10th place, and they might be like a 1 or 2 point favorite. Mm-hmm. And that's not really something you see in the other leagues. And I think that there is some value in that. And I think the league's going to lean into that. And in terms of identity, I think that's clearly what kind of separates them from a lot of these leagues. If you see a team like Ohio State or Georgia lose, it feels like a tectonic event. If you're seeing a team that's, a Utah or an Oklahoma State or a Kansas State, and that list of championship contenders is going to change from year to year. If they go on the road and lose, it's going to be like, yeah, that's just sort of another week in the Big 12.
So if you look at those who right now appear to be in position to be the best, or at least some of the favorites to play for the Big 12 title, and there's maybe a list of who we kind of see in 3 or 4 different categories. Who do you feel like is getting some love that might disappoint? And anybody at the bottom feeders that get thrown into that group of BYU, Houston, Cincinnati, Baylor, Arizona State, can any of them surprise people?
Well, I mean, Utah and Kansas have had so many issues with their health at the quarterback position that if that becomes an issue again, if Cam Rising is not 100% or bangs up his knee again, if Jalen Daniels, who I think as a case is the most electrifying player in the league, if those guys are not suited up for 12 games, I think that, reality can hit those 2 teams in a hurry, despite all the other things that those programs have going for them. As far as teams down at the bottom, I don't know that I see a ton. I think BYU is sort of a question mark for me in a lot of ways. We'll see what Cincinnati has. I really like Willie Fritz long term at Houston. What he inherited, I think we'll sort of see. I like what Kenny Dillingham is doing at Arizona State, but they're digging out of a pretty big hole there as well. So, once you get past like Texas Tech and TCU, I'm not a big believer in Colorado's upside. I think it's hard for I hear a lot of people talking about them winning 8 or 9 games. I'm not so sure that I see that. I feel like 7 kind of feels like a little bit of the ceiling for me. But yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of teams that are going to be kind of wild cards this year. But in terms of those teams that I think can be movers, I think I point to that Utah and Kansas just because the health of the quarterback spot has been such an issue for them. And there's no Jason Bean, there's no pig farmer left for Utah. And I think as far as upward mobility, I find it hard to believe Houston's going to finish in 15th personally.
How long would I have to stump for you to believe that UCF could win this league?
Not very far. Not very far at all. If you can improve the defense, that's the first step. I think they definitely have upgraded at quarterback. KJ Jefferson, I think because of what happened to him at Arkansas with the Dan Enos misstep last year that Sam Pittman corrected mid-season, I think KJ Jefferson's stock is really one that is probably undervalued, not only across the country, but even in the Big 12, is because he was so average looking last year. And that's just not something that you sort of are used to seeing with him. I mean, he's been a great player throughout his career. He's played a ton of football, and he's a really good fit for Gus Malzahn's system down there. And you pair him up, with R.J. Harvey, that's a team that can really I think they've got a lot of upside in the league. So you don't have to talk to me for too long, if you want to talk about UCF. I think obviously the defense has got to be fixed first, but offensively, I think they're going to be able to put some points on the board.
Who is more of an intriguing story? I think this might be an easier question than I'm asking, but Lance Leipold or Chris Kleiman?
I'd have to go for Lance Leipold just because I think Chris Kleiman inherited a pretty good situation compared to certainly the one that Bill Snyder inherited, centuries ago.
Yep.
But for a long time, the question was, can Kansas ever get out of this insane
spiral
hole that the program had dug that just seemed to get deeper and deeper and deeper? And some of the scholarship changes and roster management, that did help Kansas because they were playing so far below their scholarship limit for so long. When they had Les Miles, when they had Charlie Weiss, and when they had David Beatty and all those things. But Lance, he turned them from really unwatchable for a really long time into, win or lose, even last year, the year before, and I think certainly this year, win or lose, Kansas is one of the most fun teams in Big 12. Jalen Daniels, the fact that Kansas has the player that I think you can make the case as the most electrifying player in the league, that is not something that Kansas has been able to say, maybe ever. Going back to Todd Reesing, who was sort of a forgotten man in a really impressive group of quarterbacks in that late kind of 2000s there. So I would probably say Lance Leipold just because he did what a lot of people seem to think was impossible, which is dig Kansas out of the hole and not even really just make them respectable, but that's a good football team right now.
Yeah, it is, and the way he's done it, we had him on during Big 12 Media Days, and he seems like he's got that look of anger, or just grouchy, but he has a tremendous sense of humor. He was fantastic. So you can kind of see where he's the lovable, and yet, I'm not saying players coach, but he's got that lovable side that maybe sometimes people don't get to see.
Well, I think if you have such a tradition of winning, I don't care what the circumstances are or where you do it or how you do it or whatever. If you can consistently win anywhere, that's really, really hard to do. And Lance Leipold has done that. Obviously he did that at Division II, and now he did that at Buffalo. And that is not the easiest thing to do. And so for you to have that kind of sustained success, they seem to know what they're doing. And so I love that hire for Kansas. I thought Kansas should have hired Willie Fritz, 5 or 6 years ago. But when they hired Lance Leipold, I was like, first of all, it's amazing that they got him. And I think he can really do some stuff. And he's exceeded even, the biggest expectations.
Is there anybody that has more, at least immediate pressure on him to win of a new coach than Kalen DeBoer at Alabama?
Nope. That is going to be a thankless job. Coaches in the coaching fraternity have been talking forever about, not wanting to be that guy that follows up Nick Saban. And Kalen DeBoer can talk about, well, I'm not scared of it. I'm not scared of it. I'm not scared of it. I want to embrace that. But there's not a lot of places where you can win 9, 10 games and people are still going to be grumbling. That's a short list of places, and he's at one right now. So good luck to him. I think he's a really, really good football coach. I think it's going to be a situation with a lot of unique challenges. But if you do win 9 or 10 games, that's a pretty good year at a lot of places, even places in the SEC. And at Alabama, you're going to be compared to an impossible standard because you're replacing the best that's ever done it.
Yep. Don't be the guy that replaces the legend. Be the one that replaced the legend. But I think it's great that he's taking it head on. Hopefully he'll have a very successful season. David, welcome back. I know you. What's the next thing you have on your writing column or what you have, a topic?
Well, we've got. I'm going to be taking over the full-time hosting duties for Until Saturday, our cultural podcast. We'll be writing a bunch of stuff coming up. I'm going out to Boulder for Colorado's season opener, and then I think I'm going to Nebraska week 2 for their second game, and so I'll be keeping an eye on Dion early in the season, and then we'll see what happens. But we're going to be doing plenty of stuff this year, so I'm excited for getting to the fall and kind of getting my feet underneath me after a summer away.
It's good for you to be back, and good luck with the little ones. Thanks for your time. David Ubben, the Athletic.com, covering college football with us on 365 Sports. Around the corner, by the way, our next segment.
Andy Bitter.
Well, yeah, it's Virginia Tech, and we've discussed it. Do you know that there's a good chance the opening weekend of the season, 4 colleges, 4 programs will have starting quarterbacks that are from Baylor?
Yeah, well, they will for sure.
Kyron Drones,
UAB
Jacob
will for sure.
Zeno. Gary Bohannon is like right now kind of like just not the leader in the clubhouse.
He's still on the –
but he's on the front page of the leaderboard.
Yeah, he's on the front page of the leaderboard. He's
got
like,
some holes left to play.
Yeah, he was like on 12, maybe 13. He's at the turn.
God, after last week when the kid, oh my God, what it was, Grayson or whatever, he eagled twice, had an eagle on the back nine, had another eagle, and the next hole he had a quadruple bogey or a triple.
Did Aaron Rye win last week?
Yes, because this guy Grayson, he melted down.
Yeah,
and some of the controversy is because they were playing into the dark, but it was a Sunday night. They had already played 30-something holes that day. Adam Bitter is next. He covers Virginia Tech. They kind of have something going, and one of the reasons why is their quarterback in Kyron Drones, who was at Shadow Creek High School, hell of a player in high school. His dad's a coach in high school. He's next. This is 365 Sports.
Ghost Hydration is a fully transparent, fully loaded, full-flavored hydration drink that we've all been waiting for. Ghost is caffeine-free with electrolytes, 0 sugar, and low sodium that'll hydrate your body before, during, and after your workout. Consumer loved with authentic flavors, so grab and enjoy a Sour Patch Kids Blue Raspberry and Red Berry, along with the Kiwi Strawberry, Orange Squeeze, or Lemon Lime. Ghost Hydration can truly be used anytime. Remember, it's formulated for sports, but made for life.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor Alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor Alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor Alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the NIT Group Insurance Agency. With the NIT Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the NIT Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the NIT Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Tech Sideline, senior staff writer, lead football beat writer, Andy Bitter, covers Virginia Tech, and he joins Paul Catalina, David Smoke on 365 Sports. Andy, I want to start with, I saw a tweet last night. To get a little more heat, the Hokies changed practice locations Wednesday, working out on the field turf the marching Virginians usually use. On that switch, an offensive line. So is this just to kind of change the monotony of fall workouts or practices?
But it had a dual purpose. It was doing that, trying to sort of break up the monotony of what you'd expect this time of year, but also, they have field turf, but it's on an indoor facility on their campus. So you get in there, it's shaded. So it's probably 10 degrees cooler than being outside. So they want to get outside on the field turf. That's what they're going to be playing on when they go to Vanderbilt in the opener. So it's just sort of get accustomed to what they might face when they go down to Nashville in a couple of weeks here.
Andy, what have you seen from Kyron Drones now in year two, heading into year two as the starter?
I think he is primed for a really good season. He came on strong last year, started the last 10 games, I believe it was, after taking over the Rutgers game. And, just command of the offense, I think, is going to be really good. I think understanding, the connection with the offensive coordinator, Tyler Bowen here, and, getting on the same page with his receivers. It's the first full off season where he had as the starter where, get to throw with those guys all off season, get on the same page. And, I think this offense is primed to take a big step forward as long as the offensive line continues to develop.
It's a good-looking kid. He was here. We saw him from Shadow Creek High School. His dad's a high school coach. What kind of personality have you been able to notice? He was pretty quiet but it was the backup. I always wondered if he should get more snaps, and unfortunately, he never did. Well, what have you learned about Kyron Drones?
Yeah, I think pretty quiet is an accurate description of him still. I think he's taken on some leadership responsibility, certainly as the starting quarterback, but he's not a demonstrative guy out there. Like, he works out in the off season with his personal QB coach, and he's out there working out with Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. And Shedeur and Cam are going back and forth talking trash the whole time. And Kyron is kind of the quiet one in the three, just going about his business. Like, he'll chime in every now and then when, both of them are talking about, you ran for, you guys had to run the ball all the time to win the bowl game. And Kyron turns around and is like, well, how'd you guys' bowl game go? He can't shot back with that one because neither of them, one didn't play in one and one lost the bowl game. So, I think it's that sort of response. Actually, I think both of them might not have played a bowl game. Either way, he shot back with a pretty good response to both of them. But, I think personality-wise, he's just perfect for this offense. He's just sort of a, put your head down, go to work kind of guy. And, that's what Brent Pry and the staff appreciates.
What has Brent Pry changed about the culture there that was kind of evident, especially down the backstretch of last year?
Yeah, I think more than anything, it feels like it's a fun program to be around. Those last couple Justin Fuente years, it just sort of felt like dread around the program all the time. And everybody was so serious about stuff. And I don't know if it's because of the job security issue, and the COVID season was in there, so that was a weird one too. But it's like you saw the number of transfers they had out of the program. And it was a lot, and it was some significant guys too that went on to other places and played very well. Whereas, the guys that are leaving right now aren't really going and starring anywhere else. The main guys kind of want to stay in Blacksburg and play for this team. And I didn't get the sense that was the case before. So I think it's just an overall general vibe about the program that's just more enjoyable to be around. And, if you can get those good players to stick around, they're going to do good things on the field eventually.
Andy, when looking at their schedule, nobody can be – it's not like Virginia Tech is Ohio State or Georgia, but they're good. But it does seem like this schedule gives them a chance to be, like, in the conversation. Your thoughts about that?
Yeah, absolutely. absolutely. I mean, this was the 7-6 team last year, so I still have to see them go out and beat like a good team before I believe that this is like for real, that this team could really be a contender. But non-conference schedule, they should go 4-0 on it. I think Rutgers is the toughest game, but Vanderbilt, Marshall, ODU, they should beat all three of those teams. And then you get the ACC play, and they miss a lot of the top teams in the conference. They play at Miami, and they have Clemson at home. But they don't play Florida State. They don't play UNC. They don't play Georgia Tech. Or they do play Georgia Tech. They don't play SMU. They don't play Louisville. They don't play NC State. I mean, you can tick down the programs that are sort of being picked in the top half of the ACC, and there's just not a lot of games against Virginia Tech there. So that imbalance of the ACC schedule now with 17 teams, I think you really have to look at who you play each year when you're sort of projecting how these teams could do. And, if it clicks with Virginia Tech, I mean, you're looking at, 2 or 3 pretty major games. And if they win those, that might get them over the hump and make them a dark horse candidate for something here.
The highest team on their schedule, and again, this is based on preseason, is 14. The highest ranked team on their schedule is 14th and 19th, which it just kind of jumped out at me when I looked at that schedule just a few minutes ago. Andy Bitter with us, Tech Sideline with us on 365 Sports.
Yeah, at Miami, which I think people may forget because it's been so long, Andy, since both those teams were in the Big East and both those teams were at the top of the Big East. But that's a rivalry. That one used to get really, really lit, and it looks like maybe it could again. Do you think that we might see a revival of the intensity between those two?
I hope so, and I think the ACC hopes so, because that's sort of been one of the underlying things about why isn't this conference as respected as it could have been. I mean, since Miami got in the ACC, it hasn't been very good. It hasn't won a single ACC title, and then you look at Virginia Tech for the last 13 years, the program has been basically a 500 program, maybe slightly above that, but it just doesn't really jump off the page at you. So. I think the ACC would very much like to have Florida State and a Clemson who are clicking, and then have Miami and Virginia Tech who are also doing good things too. If you put forward those 4 teams and they're actually doing well, that's a really solid top half of the conference with some premier programs or ones that have been like that in the past. I think that would help the reputation of the league quite a bit if all those groups could get going at the same time.
Andy, do people not understand that Kyron Drones is more dual threat than people realize?
Well, if they don't, they're going to find out because he's a load to bring down. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at him and he's like
he's a dude. He's a dude.
225. He's a big guy. He's really well built and not afraid to lay out a guy out in the open field. So I think he's emerging as a passer. I think he threw the ball better than I thought he would last year. Maybe downfield throwing is an area of his game that really needs to improve. But, he completely opened up this running game with the way he played. It was nothing. I mean, I think they had like 12 yards against Purdue or something like that. And he goes in and, by the end of the year, they top 300 yards in 3 separate games. I mean, the quarterback has a big reason behind that. But, he can throw the ball too. And they've got a pretty good receiving core that might be one of the best ones they've had here in a while. So, I think that's why what's so interesting about this offense is you put a dual threat guy like that out there and hand him the keys. I think they can do some special things there.
What's the temperature in Blacksburg about the future of the ACC?
Sort of uncertainty. I think they're one of those schools that would love if the ACC would break up and they could have some options, but at the same time, I don't think they're guaranteed a seat at the table. And it depends on how big the SEC and the Big Ten want to get. Virginia is a state that neither one of them have. I know the latest round of expansions around about brands to get in the biggest brands in football, but there still is a cable model out there that's pretty lucrative. That if you can bring in new households in those states, it might be an attractive option. But not having that certainty of having a seat at the table if this thing were to break up, I think they're sort of holding back and letting Florida State and Clemson take all the heat with these legal challenges and kind of seeing how things play out after that.
Just looking at the records, the Frank Beamer years speak for themselves. He had numerous numerous double-digit win seasons of 10 wins or more. In fact, I think at one point maybe he had 8 consecutive years where they won 10 games. That's happened once since with Fuente in 2016, 9 the next year. They've won 8 here, 6, 7. What's been missing?
That's a 8,000-word answer, but I think the culture kind of got away from them for a while. Just, what this program was about and the head of the program, when you change it from a longtime coach like that to something new, I think there's going to be people that are, struggling to adapt to what the new coach brought in. And, this is how we used to do it the old way. And maybe the old way was more successful, certainly with the number of wins that they had there. But I also think that, sometimes it just boils down to they haven't had that many great quarterbacks. Because you think about Virginia Tech back in the day, Michael Vick, Brian Randall, Tyrod Taylor, even Logan Thomas with the success he had. And since Logan Thomas left, they sort of had one dude that really did it at Virginia Tech. Hendon Hooker did it at Tennessee after he transferred, but Gerard Evans in 2016, and that was the year they won 10 games. So, I can sit here and talk about culture and then making it a fun place and, bringing back the 90s glory days on defense and stuff like that. Sometimes you just need a quarterback that can be a difference maker. And, honestly, I think they found a difference maker here in Kyron Drones, which is why, so many Hokies fans are looking forward to this season.
Andy, good stuff, man. Thanks for being a part of the show. Have fun. We'll get you on again. Hopefully they get off to a nice start and we have you on again pretty soon.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Andy Bitter with his Tech Sideline, covers Virginia Tech and the Hokies with Kyron Drones, their quarterback, and Brent Pry in his third year. After a really rugged start last year, they were 2-4, finished up, got in a bowl game, finished 7-6, and so trying to. And their schedule, really, I mean, I tried to just glance at it, and that's not everything, but the first thing I thought of was there's nobody ranked except Clemson and Miami. And one's a home game, the game against Clemson later in the year. Clemson 14, maybe by then they have moved up to their normal spot inside the top 10. But, there's Georgia Tech. We don't know what's going to happen with Fran Brown at Syracuse, and that's later in the year. But Vanderbilt, a road game, got to be careful. That's a road game. You can say whatever you want. That's a game on the road. They got to take care of business in Nashville. Marshall and Old Dominion. Marshall can be a problem. But this is Virginia Tech. They should have, but they got the game, the non-conference game against Rutgers.
Well, remember they lost to ODU a couple years ago.
So Rutgers is their fourth game. It's a home game. And they're getting a lot of, not love, but they're getting a lot of respect as far as a team that will be a bowl team this year in the Big Ten.
So, do you remember how intense that Virginia Tech and Miami game used to be when they were in the Big East?
Oh.
It was.
I loved Frank Beamer. Nebraska played against him a couple of different times, both classic games. Loved what he did. He was a huge special teams guy. They would block punts and kicks and stuff like that. But yes.
Because
absolutely, yes, Virginia Tech.
Part of the reason
Miami.
it was so good is both of their attitudes defensively were, this is a fight.
Yes, we're going to.
We are in a fight, and you watch games, and late hits aren't good, but, I mean, it was like one of those things where it's like, oh, somebody's getting rabbit punched on the bottom of the pile. Like, there's stuff going on here. It got intense. The more I think about this, like, breaking up the Big East was just such a terrible idea. All these teams were better when that happened. Almost breaking up any conference has been bad. I mean, not all, but like it really has. But I think about the Big East and how good it used to be when Miami was in it and Virginia Tech and West Virginia, like all of them good. Miami and West Virginia was one hell of a rivalry.
Yep, no question.
I miss that.
I want to put things in perspective, and I know we got Gary Smith coming up next on Tulane. Virginia Tech started playing football in 1902. They had a 9-1 team early, which was as many games as you could pretty much play was the 10. They never won 10 games. Never from 1902 until 1995. Now, again, winning 10 for some is like breathing. Then they won 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times from 1995 to 2004. Then they had 8 consecutive, and then one more in Fuente's first year after Beamer left. They were 10-4, and they just haven't been able to get over the hump since that time. All right, when we come back, Gary Smith, he covers Tulane for the Times-Picayune. That's next. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Fastest growing pizza brand in America. Bob Mock, the local owner here in Waco. There were no stores just a handful of years ago, and now there are 5. Robinson and Hewitt Woodway, and then also China Spring and Belmead. Marco's Pizza. Go online, marcos.com. Pizza lovers get it. And find what you want when it comes to some deals. And they got some code words you could use when you order online to get some better prices. They can also take your order online and you pick up, or they deliver to you. It's up to you on what you want to do with that. Marco's Pizza, fastest growing pizza brand in America. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it at marcos.com.
Bambi SQ, what is the number one reason, or 2 or 3 reasons, Bambi, that people should contact House of Travel?
As a travel agency local here in Waco, we can take care of all your bookings, your payments, answer your questions, help you when there are issues or problems, things that may come up that you don't know what to do or how to fix them. People don't realize we don't charge a fee for what we do. It doesn't cost you extra to use a travel agent. We're just here. We get paid by the tour companies and the cruise lines to represent them. But you have an expert on your side that's here and local, and you have a name and a face to put together to help you with anything that you may need. Give us a call. We can price things for you. We can help you answer questions. We can make it simple, easy, and one stop.
Your knowledge of all the years you've done this and then spit it back to them or give them options?
Helps us to kind of know a date range, a budget, what your goals are and what you want to see and do on your vacation. And then that helps us to know what to look for, and we can narrow down and help you make the best choices for your vacation so you get the best value. You get exactly what you were hoping for, and making sure that it's taken care of with a carefree, easy, simple for you type vacation. I've been doing this for over 40 years. Every day I learn something new. I experience new situations and things that I can help take care of for people, whether it's just making sure you get the best deals and find the best vacations, or whether it's to solve that problem, like you've got a flight that's being canceled and don't know what to do. There's weather coming up, but should I cancel my trip next week because of the hurricane? Those are things that we take care of, and you don't have to worry about. You've got somebody that you can rely on that you know is an expert, knows what we're doing, have been doing this for a long time, so that you're not questioning, okay, does the person on the other end of the phone really understand what I'm asking or know how to find those deals? You've got an expert, and we are here to take care of that.
For more information, go to houseoftravelwaco.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and Equal Housing Lender.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient, with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6, and just east of I-35 in Waco.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Bud Light. Enjoy the smooth, crisp taste of Bud Light beer. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy.
Gary Smith covers Tulane for the Times-Picayune. Joins us on 365 Sports. Craig and Paul, David Smoke. And Gary, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. When we back and forth discussed having you on, it was going to be about Tulane football. It will be. But what is your what's kind of the feeling in New Orleans or around Tulane football? There's that back kind of in the headlines again about a G5 separation of their own championship type tournament.
Yeah, I mean, that's been talked for a while now. There's just people are writing about it a little bit more now. Yeah, I'm sure there's concern down the road, but Tulane's really worried about taking care of itself right now and putting itself in the best possible position to maybe make a move up in conference down the road. And the best way to do that would be to have another successful year this year where there absolutely is an opening into the into the playoffs for the first real time for conferences like this. So obviously that's I'm sure that is the way we're heading. It's just a question of how soon are we going to get there or not. I don't think there's that's not an overriding concern around Tulane. Is there
ever any discussion of building a time machine and going back and choking out the old men that decided not to be in the SEC back in the day?
Not really. I mean, if you talk to fans, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But in terms of the administration, that's Tulane de-emphasized football for a long time. That they're not. I mean, we're talking about a program that until a few years, until Willie Fritz arrived as coach, was struggling to be competitive at the level it was at. First, they fixed that problem, and they fixed that problem. And no, I don't foresee a whole lot of success for Tulane. Tulane would have been the Vanderbilt of the SEC for a long time if they've been there. Now, obviously, if you look at it, it would obviously be a good thing for Tulane to be in it. But they're not. Again, they're not. That's not that big a deal around here right now. Although, if you talk to the fans, it is.
Yeah, hindsight's always 20/20, right? I'm sure there's some of that. But what's it just been like around Tulane football with the changes this offseason, particularly at the top with John Summerall taking over for Willie Fritz?
Incredible excitement because this is exactly what Tulane never did in the past. When they had a pocket of success, they then followed it up by making disastrous decisions that made no sense. You go back to when Tulane went 12-0 in 1998 under Tommy Bowden and Rich Rodriguez, and Rich Rodriguez thought he was going to get the job, but Tulane went another direction because they wanted somebody who they thought would stay for a while. Well, if you're talking about a coach who stays for a while, that means he's not winning a whole lot. And it was just backwards thinking. The program immediately cratered. This time, everybody wanted John Summerall. He was an assistant under Curtis Johnson at Tulane. You could see he was headed for the top back then. He won exactly the same number of games as Willie Fritz did at Tulane when he was at Troy the last 2 years, except he won 2 conference titles in the Sun Belt instead of 1. He's an up-and-coming coach, and he's exactly the guy Tulane would not have pursued in the past because they would have thought they couldn't get him, A, or B, that he might leave soon, which is a great thing. I mean, you want a coach that's successful, and Tulane did it, so the excitement level is off the charts because for once Tulane got the exact candidate that everybody wanted, and it was the best candidate for the job.
Paul Catalina, who's with us on the show, one of the co-hosts, does at the end of the show called a top 5, and you had Summerall high over and over again.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he's an intense dude, and he's a really good coach. And it's a nice transition from Willie Fritz. Really is. I mean, he's younger. He's on the way up, and really wants to be there. Loves New Orleans.
Yeah, and I'm not going to downgrade what Willie Fritz did at all, because Willie Fritz did the toughest thing you can do at Tulane, which was he transferred the culture from a program where players showed up a lot of times, some of the players just so that they could get the education while being on scholarship, and others because they didn't really have any other serious offers, and there was no commitment to winning among the players. He changed. It took him a while. It wasn't easy. He absolutely changed that culture, and now that's in place. And Summerall's recruiting at a different level than Fritz ever did. I mean, Summerall, he immediately in same day in January, gets Mario Williams, a wide receiver at USC, who obviously Mario Williams didn't have the greatest year last year at USC, but that's a guy that would never even considered Tulane in the past. Then he gets Ty Thompson, who's not having who is clearly not taken reins yet to be the starting quarterback, but he was a guy that was a tremendous recruit coming out of high school. He had a lot of suitors at Oregon. Then they got transfers over and over. They've got a defensive end from Louisiana Monroe, Aiden Huntington. His other offer was Oklahoma. Oklahoma was his finalist, and he chose Tulane over Oklahoma. They play in Norman early September, and he's going to be their starting defensive end. So he started off recruiting at a higher level than Fritz ever did. He's already proven he can coach. He took over a Troy team that was underachieving, that had won when he was assistant, but hadn't won once he left, and immediately transformed them into a championship level team. So this is the best that Tulane's program has been since they went undefeated in 1998 in terms of the positioning.
So what does that quarterback battle look like right now?
It's wide open now because neither Ty Thompson nor Kai Horton has taken the bull by the horns and said, I'm the man. In the first 2.5 weeks of preseason drills, it's to the point where neither one of them was sharp in the scrimmage, and redshirt freshman Darian Mensah came in, and he was playing with backups, but he went 3 for 3 for 96 yards and a touchdown, and he impressed John Summerall enough that in Tulane's second scrimmage, which is tonight at 7 p.m., Darian Mensah is going to take the first team snaps. That doesn't mean they're giving him the job, but it's now a three-way competition, and it really is a three-way competition. This isn't just something to light a fire under the other quarterbacks. Whichever quarterback of those three performs best in the next couple of weeks is going to be the starter against Southeastern. But nothing's been clear-cut, and I'd be surprised if Tulane doesn't probably go into the season playing more than one quarterback, because it's just not clear. I think it's going to take game time to find out which of these quarterbacks is the one that helps Tulane win the most.
You mentioned that what we discussed, the stories that are being written again. It has been mentioned before, as you said, about the group of five having their separate championship deal, and they're so convoluted and so complicated. But really, Tulane just worries about themselves, is what you're saying. Just go take care of us. Let's not worry about Florida State, Clemson being trying to leave at ACC or what's happening here. Just go take care of your own business.
Right, because in the past, although I know there were rumors several years ago about the Big 12 being interested in Tulane, that wasn't going to happen at that time. Tulane has to win consistently to have one of these conferences be interested in them, and they're off, two straight double-digit win seasons under Willie Fritz, and possibility for more here under John Summerall, and that's what Tulane's worried about. And the American Athletic Conference, which has definitely taken a massive hit in the last 2 years, but it's never been in favor of this NIT type deal for the conferences, because that's basically just giving up is kind of the way they feel on that. So you're certainly not going to see Tulane or its administration pushing that idea of a separate playoff. They want to be included in the big boys party, and see how long that is allowed.
But if it came to a vote and there was one, would they vote for it as long as they got to keep in the big boy party?
I don't think so, but I have not specifically asked that question to David Harris, the athletic director. But I don't think they're really that worried about that right now. Obviously, this year there's a definite playoff spot for the top group of five champion, and that's where Tulane's focus is right now.
Outside of the quarterback battle, what would you say is the, biggest question mark for people like yourself covering them on a daily basis?
Yeah, I'd say really three. Obviously, quarterback is the biggest question mark, because Michael Pratt was an incredible winner. Last year, he played on a bad knee all year, but when it mattered at crunch time, he kept making plays to help Tulane win games. They don't know that they have that yet this year, but other than that, I'd say wide receiver and defensive back. The wide receivers are actually very talented. I think Phil Steele magazine rated them as the best position group on Tulane's football team, but they're not proven. Mario Williams did not have a very good year at USC last year. They brought in Shaz Preston from Alabama, who was almost a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, but he didn't catch a pass in 2 years at Alabama, and now he's out with a hamstring injury. They've got Dante Fleming, a guy who transferred from University of Louisiana last year. he only caught 6 passes. He's looked awesome in preseason drills, but he's going to have to prove it in games. So I'd say wide receiver. I mean, their best receiver last year was Chris Brazzell, and I think he's going to end up being a starter for Tennessee this year. That's where he transferred. He's earning rave reviews over there. They need, so he was a pretty big loss. So I'll be interested to see how the wide receivers play. And then cornerback, John Summerall said after the end of spring drills, he told his offensive coordinator, they were going to have to score 40 points a game to win if they didn't improve at that position. And then they used the portal absolutely tremendously. They brought in Micah Robinson from Furman, who had ACC offers, and they brought in Jonathan Edwards from Indiana State, who had some P4 offers. And they've been very good in preseason, and they've forced some of the returners to play better too, but that's still an unproven position. Tulane lost his top 3 guys from that position, including Jarius Monroe last year. And so that, to me, if they can get good cornerback play, the rest of their defense is solid enough that they're going to be pretty elite on that side of the ball.
Gary Smith, Times-Picayune with us on 365 Sports. Give me the atmosphere about Yulman Stadium, where Tulane plays their home games.
It's gotten better. I mean, it was obviously the Superdome that Tulane played for a long time before they built Yulman Stadium for 2014. The Superdome was a tomb-like atmosphere, and it wasn't great at Yulman Stadium up until 2 years ago. They got to the conference championship game. They hosted UCF, and it was the place was electric that night as Tulane blew out UCF to win their first AAC championship. It was electric last year against SMU until the game started. The conference championship game, the game didn't go too well, but it's become a good atmosphere when you have a 30,000 seat stadium and you can pack it consistently. And Tulane's getting to that point. It's a nice environment, and it's the right size for Tulane right now, and in terms of what the fan base is.
How much conversation is there about the future? And I know they've asked you all about the proposed tournament that's nowhere close to happening right this second, but everybody's got to look ahead, right? When it comes to looking, for example, at the ACC and thinking, hey, if they need some teams here pretty soon, would Tulane be one of those teams to get the call? How much discussion has there been about that?
That's the goal. I had an interview with the new athletic director, David Harris, about a month ago, and he said he's not going to comment. That all those conversations he believes are better handled in private. He's not going to be one of those guys out there campaigning, but that's absolutely the goal as is the goal for every team that wants to be successful that isn't in what the now P4, because you're right. Down the road at some point, there's probably going to be a separation, and obviously you want to be on the right side of that separation.
Gary, good stuff. Really good stuff. Thanks for your time, and we'll watch what Tulane does and be back in touch with you sometime, hopefully during the season, to talk Green Wave. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Gary Smith, Times-Picayune on Tulane. We've tried to touch in with a lot of different schools at all the levels, including Boise State, Memphis, and now also with Tulane. We have to make Metal and his Group of Five presidency, his candidacy for the Group of Five presidency, relevant on this show.
Can we at least get him a Group of Five ambassadorship or a cabinet position? That's a gateway to the presidency.
You either win or you don't. He's up. No, he's on the ballot. He's on the ballot.
But what if he doesn't? What if he doesn't win?
Then he doesn't win.
Look, I'm all about giving people contingency plans to get back in the next time
G5
around.
is too.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. All right. I saw where S. Michael DeHart has some sort of connection to Frank Beamer. I wish I could go by that chat room, man, when it gets going. Okay, my late mother was second cousins to Frank Beamer. My great-grandmother was a Beamer. Mom was born and raised in Hillsville, Beamer's hometown. We gave her hell every time West Virginia, everything West Virginia, Virginia Tech. So, S. Michael, thank you for that nugget on the relationship your late mother had with Frank Beamer. Great coach. God loved the way they played the game. When we come back, Mickey Spagnola, Cowboys training camp, preseason games are going on. I've watched maybe about 10 minutes total. That's about it. Maybe a highlight or two, and that's it. But starting
that running
to get
back room stinks on paper, man. It really
stinks on the field.
No, I know, but I was just looking around at stuff last night, and I'm not a Cowboys fan, but I pay attention to them, and I know all the moves that have been made. But until I really sat there and thought about it, oh wow, Like, yeah, they really that room is not what it has been the last several years. And when you thought, like, it was set up so well, right, for, like, the next decade, and it's just fizzled slowly but surely, if not quickly in some cases. And, yeah, that's obviously one of the issues Cowboys fans have right now. But that running back room does, like, when Zeke's, like, going to be playing a lot, it's like, is this 2014 or 2016 or 2018, or where are we in the timeline right now?
Yeah. Whenever they've gone back into the past, they did this with Herschel Walker. I mean, like, they eventually got him back, and then they were kind of creative with him. I mean, he played like tight end and scored a touchdown, and he ran a kickback, and he was still a little bit of Herschel Walker, but he wasn't the guy that they traded away that built the thing. And they did it. They did it with Alvin Harper. Alvin Harper came back, and then it just, when you're in that portion where you're like, okay, what can we do? Let's not draft anybody. Let's go get Zeke. I don't.
Yeah, it's been a peculiar offseason, and I don't know, that running back room, when Ezekiel Elliott's once again your starter after he left, and you thought like that was the end of the road, and now he's back, and Rico Dowdle's his backup, and you're leaning on, what is it, like Royce Freeman after that? Is that who their third running? Like that I just feel like we're in a time machine or something. It's really strange. But they got great receivers, though. I mean, so long as CeeDee's happy with his contract. So, no lack of topics to discuss with Mickey, that's for sure.
Yeah. He's next. And Mickey, when I texted him, he goes, I thought you guys fired me. We have just become so core with what we do with college football, and we'll start to have Mickey and obviously, my goodness, our from theathletic.com. Paul, who am I missing?
John Machota.
John Machota, among others, will be doing that and having them on as a football season not only approaches, but during the season too. So, Mickey Spagnola next on 365 Sports.
Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Townwest Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco is where I get my cigars. 48-foot walk-in humidor with all of the great brands, nationally and internationally, the best elite brands around the world. And how about this email from owner Josh Caldwell, who told me about a couple that drove in from Fort Worth to Waco purely based on listening and hearing me talk about Don Humidor. They have a pipe that's a bit of a family heirloom that needed to be repaired. They made the special trip to Don's after listening to 365 Sports, finding out we are one of the only shops left that can help them with the pipe. Not only are they going to fix the pipe, and they did, they also bought a new setup, complete with pipe, stand, and some sample tobaccos. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Townwest Shopping Center, just between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco. 48-foot walk-in humidor, great cigars, even what you need when it comes to smoking pipes and repair, and fresh coffee beans. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans with Cheyenne and Josh in the Townwest Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
Some say a dog is a man's best friend. But I tell you what, boys, you better think again. 'Cause there ain't nothing better than some cows, pigs, and turkeys too. I love to cover them in sauce down at Rudy's Barbecue.
Bring all your friends to Rudy's for some tasty oak smoke barbecue.
Next in line.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Howdy
at Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments. With financial advisor Brad Wilson, investing his time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
Mickey Spagnola had blocked my number. I've been trying to get him on the show now for the last 5 or 6 months. And finally answered my text.
Boy, you've got some good stories.
He responded. I said this before we went to the break last time. I text Mickey. He goes, I thought I'd been fired. It was nothing against you, sir. Well, first of all, it's time to have you on all the time if we can. But glad to have you. How you been, young man?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm good. I'm in Oxnard, California. It's 76 degrees, and that's a little toasty for this part of the country. Training camp one more week, and then I guess I got to return home to 105 degrees, huh?
Yeah, you do, and not soon enough. But the way you tan, sir, you'll be fine. The way you tan.
And it's been pretty sunny here almost every day, standing outside for several hours, watching practice, and I got a pretty good tan going.
Well, that's because of the vowel.
That's right.
Oh, the Italian.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The sun likes us, Mickey.
And I was explaining to somebody, I said, not only am I Italian, but I'm half Sicilian, so that even complicates the situation.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Mickey, first things first, I'm not going to ask you one single contract question because
thank God.
I think that's going to get done when it gets done. Opinions on how it's been handled are all over the place anyway. But the running back room is probably the biggest area of concern because there's nobody that's dynamic in it this year. And running back by committee kind of scares a lot of Cowboy fans. Can they rest easy, or is that something that's probably going to be a constant work in progress this year?
Well, right now it's a committee of three: Ezekiel Elliott, Rico Dowdle, and the fullback Hunter Lipke. And then we'll see if another guy among that so-called committee can make the 53-man roster. But so far, watching practice, there's nothing wrong with Ezekiel Elliott. He's still got juice. I know everybody wants to send him out to pasture, but if you think about it, the reason the Cowboys cut him last year was for financial reasons, salary cap reasons. And they should have re-signed him after they cut him, just the way the Patriots did for, $3 million plus incentives. They corrected their mistake and got him back in here. Now, he's not going to carry the ball 250, 300 times, but from what I've seen in training camp and scrimmages against the Rams, he's busting through holes. And Rico Dowdle is, as long as he can stay healthy, he had a good season last year. And he's showing that, he can do this. So when you think about it, if you weren't going to spend a first, second, or third round pick on a running back, then by the fourth round, I don't think you're drafting anybody any better than Rico Dowdle. So I think that was their logic. And they didn't have, an abundance of salary cap space to go out and prospect on somebody else's running back that they didn't think was good enough to keep on the team. So I'm not as concerned about the running back position as maybe I am on some other things that they need to take care of. I think that, a combination of these guys will do just fine. But again, a lot depends on how well your offensive line plays, and I think that's where you should start.
Mickey, when you discuss Zeke, the treads, when they're off the tire, they're off the tire. Very rarely is there an Adrian Peterson that can keep going for a certain amount of time, or whoever else. What does he not do well?
Well, I haven't seen it show up in training camp. The narrative started in 2022. And this is the part no one realizes. Before Terrence Steele went down with his torn ACL, I think it was with 5 games to go, Zeke was averaging 4.2 yards a carry. After Steele went down, they had another Biadasz missed a game or two. All of a sudden, over the last 5 games, he averaged 3.2 yards a carry. So it came down to 3.8. But no one has bothered to look into what happened and why that happened. It's like everybody wants to just take a couple stats and put them in a big box and tie a bow on it without looking inside the box to try to figure out just exactly what happened. And I'll guarantee you, if his base salary wasn't going to be $10.99 million, and knowing that they were going to franchise Tony Pollard because they wanted to keep him, he would have still been on the team. But their hand was forced. And as you saw, how well did Pollard run last year? And this was on a 12-5 team that had one of the best offenses in the league. As a team, they only averaged 4 yards a carry. So it wasn't like they were lighting it up with somebody else. Now, if you look at just Zeke's, stark numbers with New England, that was an awful offense that he was playing for. Yet, when they suffered the injury to Stevenson was his name, I'm trying to remember, Zeke was their leading ball carrier. He ended up being their leading rusher and had the most receiving yards on a bad team. So this concern that Zeke's over the hill is not founded if you come here and watch practice and see him zip through some holes.
Who's going to be the starting center if you had to guess right now, Hoffman or Cooper Beebe?
I think it's a dead heat right now. I think they really liked what Hoffman was doing. They wanted to give Beebe an opportunity, and he worked with the first team this week. He worked with the first team in the scrimmage with the Rams. I would imagine that they will, they're not going to play their starters again in the scrimmage Saturday against the Raiders, but I bet they give him the majority of the center snaps just to see how well he handles the situation. I've watched him during the scrimmage yesterday with the Rams, and Dak took responsibility for a couple drop snaps, but boy, his blocking is awfully strong, sort of what you saw on tape from him when he was playing guard at Kansas State. So it's a matter of him getting reps, and they'll take a look at it and see, which guy they're most comfortable with.
So Paul didn't want to bring up the contracts, and I really don't either, but in the end, won't CD get pretty much what he wants? Won't Dak pretty much get what he wants? It's just a matter of how they distribute it.
Well, I don't know if they're going to get what they want. Because you know what they want, right? They want to be the highest paid player at their position. So that's the complication, especially with CD, because everybody's saying, well, we know what he's got to get paid. Justin Jefferson got an average of $35 million a year. Well, if you or me were negotiating that contract, $35 million is probably the basement. I want 40, and I'm going to ask for it too. Now, I don't know what they're asking for, but if you were negotiating, wouldn't you ask for the sky? And hopefully you maybe meet in the middle, halfway between 40 and 35. And the Cowboys have to be careful because, with Micah coming up next year, there is no team in the NFL right now today that has 3 players with the top salary at their position. 2 is the most. There's a salary cap, and the Cowboys have to be, vigilant about how they spend their money. You can't have, 3 guys taking up, 50 or 60% of your salary. And with Dak, see all these other quarterbacks that set the average rate, they're on their 2nd year deal. Dak's on his 3rd, and there's still $40 million in voided years that they've got to account for. So it's not like that goes away. You still got to account for that if he signs another deal. So that complicates the situation that nobody takes into consideration on how that affects what you pay him, because they've already renegotiated his contract about 3 times and paid him signing bonus. So it's not like they're giving him more money, but they have to account for it under a salary cap.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So no matter what they do with Dak, those voided years aren't going anywhere, right?
Exactly, and it's over like three years, I think, and it's $40 million. Well, if he's not here next year, he's counting $40 million against the cap. So that affects that thinking affects what you do with CeeDee Lamb. They're not sitting there going, well, we don't think CeeDee Lamb is worth the money. It's a matter of how much and how much is guaranteed and how much you give them to put in the bank in a signing bonus. And so we don't know what they're asking for. But to me, this has been going on now for, a couple months. What if the signing, and you guys tell me, I'm not an accountant, but what if the signing bonus is $70 million? And if you just put it in the bank, $70 million for 2 months, how much money did he forfeit? To me, at my age, I want the money now instead of sitting there procrastinating, trying to get more when I could have had all that already. So it's not like they're trying to lowball them. They're just trying to fit it into the salary cap. And it's not just about this year. It's about the next year, and then the year after that.
Anything else?
Nope.
Greg, Paul, thank you.
I was going to say, so as you see, it's not as cut and dried as everybody thinks it is. It's pretty complicated, the situation they're in, and they should be applauded for drafting well and getting guys that are, that good, that could command that much money. So we'll see. It'll work its way out at some point. And David, I'm going to leave you with this analogy. You remember my good buddy that was a columnist at the Times Herald, Frank Luxa? Absolutely, greatness. Yep. Okay, so he's when we'd be at training camp, and back in the day, everybody forgets that these holdouts were second nature, right? You spent training camp chasing down agents, right? And Frank would sit back and he goes, well, it'll work out. And I said, well, what makes you think it's going to work out? And Frank goes, well, think about this. Somebody's cat goes up in a tree and everybody gets worried. They're, going to call the fire department. How are we going to get that cat down? And his final analysis was, did you ever find a dead cat in the tree? It always comes down. And players always end up signing a contract.
Every time. One of the things I heard from somebody else, and I know we got a break and you do too, but is CD going to start bypassing $1.5 to $2 million a week salary by missing real games?
No, Absolutely. Nobody, no red-blooded American is going to sit there and go, I want more money, and to get it, I'm going to give up $1 million a week because and that's the other thing people forget, you guys. He's under contract. It's not like, they're starting from scratch. He's under contract for $17.99 million guaranteed. If he starts missing games, let's just round it off. He's given up $1 million a week. I don't think anybody's going to do that. And that's why Jerry said there's no urgency to get him signed. He wasn't going to play in the game last Sunday. He wouldn't play in the game this Saturday, probably wouldn't play in a preseason game anyway. And they know it. And if people had paid attention to our pregame show, Countdown to Kickoff, Jerry explained it very well. There's not an urgency to sign because he is signed. They picked up the 5th-year option. So we'll see how it works out. But I would imagine by time, September 8th, 9th rolls around, that he'll be in Cowboys uniform.
Thank you, Mickey. Mickey Spagnola with us, DallasCowboys.com. When we're coming back, of course, we'll have the closeout of the show and Paul's Top 5.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome back to Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. What's the promo code? 365 Sports. How did you not know that? I say it every single day. Why are you not paying attention to me? Do you not love me? Do you not understand who I am as a person? Just got to pay attention. I'm sorry, that wasn't for you. That was an argument I had with my wife. I kid. Again, promo code 365 Sports for the best Wagyu beef at TexasBeefHouse.com. Also, check out Bid on Beef for the next auctions that are coming up. We continue our top 25 offenses. We are into the top 10. And we might have a bit of a 90s theme on here since it's Thursday, and that's when Thursday night television was the best. Remember, you'd turn on Friends and Seinfeld and Frasier and ER. It was a great Thursday night. Well, you might see some teams from the 90s here in the top 10 that have been conspicuously absent, at least one for sure. Number 10, Miami. Oh, who was I talking about? The Miami Hurricanes. Cam Ward comes in to take over at quarterback behind a really, really excellent offensive line. Damian Martinez is now the starting running back, and he's one of the best in the country. They've got 3 wide receivers that can score from anywhere. They're always got good tight ends, even though one of them is 116 years old. And Mario Cristobal has to get this offense efficient. He absolutely has to. There's a lot of pressure on them, but with Cam Ward alone, it takes this from a top 30 offense to a top 10 offense, or to maybe a top 15 offense. You add Damian Martinez and the wide receivers. This should be a top 10 offense and a tough out all year long. If not now, when? For Mario Cristobal and the Miami Hurricanes. Number 9, Georgia. A little bit lower on the list, but I think, as you see, we're talking probably like 5 yards a game that separates them. Georgia's lost some playmakers from last year, namely Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers. And Ra Thomas, who was expected to be one of their top wide receivers, has been dismissed from the team with charges of criminal child abuse and endangerment. So he's not on the team. That's why I put them at 9th, because we got to see who it is. Who are the ones? Now, Georgia should not have trouble scoring. If you're the 9th best offense in the country, that's not really a bad thing. I mean, there's going to be somebody not on this list, like Western Kentucky, that I left off, that is going to have a better offense than somebody like Georgia. But is Western Kentucky better than Georgia? No. But Georgia at number 9, Carson Beck, really good at quarterback. But who are the guys who are going to move the change this year is a big thing. No McConkey, no Bowers. Will make things different, because Brock Bowers, going to be a super exciting player in the NFL and one of the most dynamic weapons in college football. Ladd McConkey might be the number 1 receiver for the Chargers already as he heads to training camp in his rookie season. Number 8, Oklahoma, where the wind goes sweeping down the plains. I know I've made that joke many times, but Boomer Sooner should have a very fun offense with Jackson Arnold. And also, keep an eye out for Purdue transfer wide receiver Deion Burks. Not a big guy, but a fast guy, and a smaller guy who, if you looked at him, you would say, this guy should be 6'4". Like he's like a 5'10" guy that's built like he's 6, like his muscles look like a 6'4" guy's muscles. It's weird. I know it's weird that I'm even talking about it like that, but Deion Burks is going to be a big change for this offense, something maybe they haven't had in the last couple years of that kind of that guy wide receiver. And when Oklahoma has a that guy wide receiver, they're usually pretty damn dangerous. And I expect the Sooners to be very dangerous on offense. And Jackson Arnold sent Dylan Gabriel, whose team is higher on this list, by the way, packing for a reason. They were confident enough in Jackson Arnold to make that decision. Number 7, Tennessee. Josh Heupel, one of the best offensive head coaches in the country. There's head coaches all over the country, like Alex Golesh at USF, who we mentioned earlier, that have brought his offense all over the place. Nico Amaliava is a star in the making. I think he and Avery Johnson will be really fun to kind of maybe compare to, because they have similar skill sets all year long, and they're kind of in the same spot in their careers. But this should be an offense that is explosive all over the place. Maybe a little bit of a down year last year, but in transition after the best team they've put together in 20 years. But I expect to see their offense be very, very, very good under Nico Amaliava at quarterback this year. If you watched him in the bowl game against Iowa, the best defense in the country, he was not bothered by them at all. And going to be scary for the rest of the SEC. And number 6, Liberty. This is a team that I didn't have in my top 25 rankings because their schedule is not good. But they have a very good quarterback. They have a very good head coach, and they're going to score a ton of points. So to leave them off this list when they're going to score 40 points a game would have been negligent on my part. Yes, do they have a schedule of anybody on the list behind them? No, but they're going to score a ton of points. Even though they did lose C.J. Daniels, he's on his way to LSU. They still have Caden Salter at quarterback, and that should make them very, very explosive. That's going to do it for this edition of the Top 5. Tomorrow, the actual Top 5 offenses in the country, according to me, Paul Catalina, experts on all things I say I'm an expert on. Certified by my parents and them only. Definitely not my wife. Is that my second wife joke? I'm like a Henny Youngman bit from the 40s right now. Anyway, we're back to wrap it up right now.
I almost heard you say you had a second wife.
No, I did 2 wife jokes there, and I don't know if you remember or heard of the comedian Henny Youngman.
Yes, I have.
But yeah, Henny Youngman would get up and go, "Take my wife, please." And he would just make jokes about his wife for 30 minutes. All hilarious. But that was his whole kind of thing.
Did she find it that way?
I mean, I don't know.
He got paid. Here's Kansas. I love these uniforms. Good looking. Kansas rock chalk. There's KU football with some uniforms. And then there's another story. Nicolas Cage is going to play who?
John Madden in a David O. Russell biopic for Amazon MGM Studios. Will Ferrell was initially supposed to play it, which I think would have probably been more on the nose.
Been too goofy, I think, probably.
But yeah, people now Will Ferrell's done some drama that's been pretty damn good, but again, people aren't going to really notice.
I'm thinking of him as Harry Carey and thinking now him trying to play John Madden.
Yeah, exactly. But I'll tell you this is getting panned a lot, but don't bet against Nicolas Cage. Here's what you'll know about Nicolas Cage movies. They are either amazingly good or amazingly bad. So this is going to be either a near Oscar-worthy performance or total crap. Either way, totally worth watching.
Yeah, I'm more interested in the red Kansas uniforms since we just rolled into the Madden stuff. I think those rock chalk on the shoulders was something I was a little bit hesitant about initially when I saw that, because like you just don't see something like that all that often. But the more I've looked at it, I think those are pretty cool, and I think they're going to look really nice on the field. Kansas fans seem super fired up to get these all reds, and yeah, I think that combo looks really nice. And I don't always love everything Adidas does, but I think these are different in a good way, and I'm looking forward to seeing what those actually look like on the field. But that rock chalk, I think that's the main thing that people are getting used to. And look, if it ends up being a hit, then I wouldn't be surprised at all if you see like somebody with Wreckham on the shoulder, Tech with Wreckham on the shoulder, Sickham on the shoulder. Now granted, Baylor's a Nike school, so they probably wouldn't go that route. But, I think that's, unique to Kansas now, and rock chalk will be well represented, and I like those. I think the red looks – I like red. Red's a great color.
How much does them unveiling those uniforms, how much the fact that they're good make them even better?
Well, that's the whole point, is that they're good. Yeah, I mean, like that's – when you're good,
if I'd have done that 7 years ago, we'd have said that's pretty good.
We wouldn't be talking about it probably, or at least not at the length that we are now. We'd be like, oh, that's cute. Kansas has got their new uniforms. But, the fact that they're good and you're going to see them probably wear these in maybe a big game against K-State or whoever it might be, I think, that definitely amplifies. When you're good, everything's better. Everything.
Yeah.
Your stadium's better, your recruiting's better, your uniforms are better. Yeah, like everything's better. So when you're on a heater and you've got a lot of momentum and now they're giving you these long-awaited like red uniforms, I mean, you're catering to your fan base in a great way, and you're getting people more and more excited. And it's hard to imagine how KU fans could be much more excited than they are for this football season. So, we'll see if ultimately by the end of things that they're as happy as they are right now. But I mean, there's been no season in forever to get as excited for as this one coming up. So now you throw in some new uniforms. Like hell yeah, they're hitting all the right boxes up there in Leipoldville.
I love red. I just absolutely love the color red. So it's going to be hard for me not to like any uniform that's got kind of a nice strong red to them.
I bet you they roll those. I bet you they don't roll those out at Sporting KC Stadium. I bet you they roll those out at Arrowhead.
Yeah.
I mean, it would make sense. Just the Chiefs vibes. That would make some sense. Yeah. I don't know how much they're. I didn't read the accompanying article to that. I just saw the picture in passing. I don't know if there's already plans for what they do there, so I'll have to look at that later. But yeah, I look forward to seeing those out on the field with Lawrence Arnold and Devin Neal and God willing Jalen Daniels and the whole whole company out there trying to find their way to a Big 12 title. So, I like those.
Speaking of one more note, Texas and A&M have announced a joint press conference for next Thursday in Houston as they will introduce a title sponsor. Houston Chronicle had this story, Brent Zerneman, a title sponsor on the renewal of the Lone Star Showdown. The rivalry for the first time since back when they played Thanksgiving of 2011, of course, rejuvenated with the SEC. So they play in College Station November 30th this year, same conference. Now they're going to put together a title sponsor of that game.
Well, thank God. I mean, they're both desperately in need of more money. And, that just makes sense. That's a cash cow sitting there waiting to be unwrapped again for the first time in forever. And so that's going to be maybe the craziest scene in college football this year. I mean, there's going to be definitely some other challengers to that throne, but a game that hasn't been played in as long with as much personal bad blood as there is, and also appreciation in some ways. Like we see the worst of the back and forth, but there's a lot of crossover, a massive amount of crossover in families all over Texas. So
yeah, maybe this will be so that both sides don't pretend like they need each other anymore, because they're better together than apart. I think that.
And I'm glad we don't have to hear for the 12th year in a row, like, it's Thanksgiving. Imagine what could have been here.
Yeah.
You know, like we finally get rid of those articles, which at the first couple of times, it's like, dude, it's been a decade. Like, I understand. Yeah. But if you're not a part of that fight, it's just like, yeah, we got it. Now we get it, and now we're all excited for it, and I think it's going to be a crazy scene, even if you have no dog in the fight whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm really happy that both those schools, like Craig said, can get a little money, because who's supposed to subsist with just 3 jets?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a huge sponsor. You know that much. I mean, whoever's lined up to be calling a press conference and having the title sponsor for a game that magnitude coming back, it's imagine a lot of money going to be a company in that announcement, whoever that is.
All right, so there you go with that. Garrett Ross, thank you very much. Emery is working on 365 Sports tonight, every weeknight at 10:30 here on the CW. Our sponsors, who we have every day in various ways that help us with segments and, of course, keep us going in this beautiful studio that we have a mile or so west of McLean Stadium. For Craig Smoke and Paul Catalina, thank you. Those in the chat, text line, don't forget, hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. We'd appreciate that, and spread the word. 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 on the CW. Until tomorrow, good night.